This episode of Bonfireside Chat is brought to you by the entirety of the Duckfeed.tv network of shows. If you like this show, we like to think that you will like our other shows. You can listen to Watch Out for Fireballs, The Level, Those Damn Ross Kids, Teenage Dirtbags, Check It Out Comrade, Abject Suffering, and more. There are blogs on the website, people. There's Hexcrank about survival horror. There's the Infinity Engineers, which I recently relaunched. I'm doing a deep dive, kind of area by area examination of Arcanum, kind of talking about what that game does, interestingly. So if you're just here for Bonfireside Chat, I understand. However, there's a bunch of other stuff. You're already here. Just check it out. Be cool. It'd be the thing to do.
Some of our landings were desperate adventures. We are now prepared to meet the inevitable counterattacks with power and with confidence.
Name thyself, stranger. I am Yorshka, captain of the Dark Moon Knights. What beckoned thee to such a place? If thou'st come stumbling here in error, I bid thee leave anon. This tower is a prison. Thy presence shall invoke the ire of the tyrant Sullivan.
My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Kole Ross.
My name is Richard Pilbeam.
And you're listening to Bonfireside Chat. It is a kindled favorite.
And this week we are talking about the second part of Irithyll of the Boreal Valley, including, and this is a reminder that we are beyond the spoiler wall, this is at your own risk, ... and Orlando, but we're going to get there. And as you heard, we are joined by Richard Pilbeam, one of our most well-received guests from recent seasons. Hey, Richard.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm back again.
Yeah, Richard, people will know you from the Jerk Sans Frontiers. Did I pronounce that right? YouTube channel.
Yeah, I don't care anymore at this point. It's become an albatross around my neck.
Oh, no. Rebrand, pull up.
It is, and also from our Bloodborne season, from
Yes.
the DLC episode that we had you on for that, and
Yes,
and
the Hunter's Nightmare.
and what Cole said was absolutely true. That I don't think we've ever had a first time guest on that has said, like, we get people like our guests, we get a lot of good feedback, but I was surprised by the outpouring of appreciation.
Yeah.
That
Oh,
came
thank
through.
you.
So yeah,
Prepare for
people really love
disappointment
it.
then.
I don't think you will. The reason why I don't think you will, and the reason why I think that the reason you kind of popped up on my radar, that YouTube channel, Jerk Sans Frontiers, is really excellent. You started doing these kind of long form, really close up, kind of zoomed in further than I'd seen other Lorsters stuff on Bloodborne.
And it's
really
a method that it's a method that sort of it works very well in Bloodborne. I don't know if it works to the same degree in Dark Souls 3, because one of the reasons that I did that with Bloodborne is that the previous Souls games, they told a lot of their stories through the item descriptions. And Bloodborne told a lot of its story visually, so I thought I'll take a different approach. So, Dark Souls 3 has been sort of interesting for me because it's mostly textual, what you're told. There's all the same degree of sort of visual inferences, but I've got a list of things in Orlando, so we'll see how
Very
it goes.
cool. Yeah, and we definitely want to get somebody who has had that kind of eye for detail for this area, because this is a very dense area, and is a kind of a turning point. Like we talked about in the last episode, how when did you pick up that this was Anne Orlando? At what point chronologically?
I was actually live streaming my blind playthrough.
Oh, wow.
And throughout it, I'm talking to people, and we had a no spoilers thing, and I was saying, like, gosh, this sure is a lot like Anne Orlando. And then it culminated in me finding the Dark Moon tomb, going up the corkscrew lift, and then like stupidly facing the wrong direction.
Oh, no.
Facing away from the cathedral, and I'm just looking at it with this expanse of nothingness. See, it's not Anne Orlando. There's nothing here. It's completely barren and empty. This is just, and then I turn around, you can just hear me go, oh, oh,
oh, hello, I didn't see you come in.
And then the title screen popped up to just add insult to injury there. That is great. Yeah. So yeah, I think this is, I mean, people could have gone down to, and we talked about this a little bit, and we'll be going down there next, but we could have gone down to Smoldering Lake and the Demon Ruins and seen this this kind of thing. But I think the game works best with this as the reveal. And people it's like you said, it's a turning point in the story because you wrapped up like what we spent a lot of the story on, which is Aldrich.
Right.
Like Aldrich is the most fleshed out big bad in the game.
Definitely.
And this is, people who have kind of been on our balls this season about not liking Dark Souls 3. Like, I think almost all of this works, and I really like this. So, if I'm gonna talk some sugar about it. So if people, and then people will probably complain about that as well. But
there's a density and consequence to the way that it is done here that actually doesn't make it feel like a throw off repeat. And also, like, this area is significantly changed aesthetically. Like, this is one of the most obvious places where time has passed.
Yeah, the way it's changed also ties back into Dark Souls 1. But we'll cover that when we get there.
So Kole, tell us about the first half of Irithyll. What we do last time.
Yeah, well, we walked into this sealed off frozen city that looked strangely familiar, faced the knights and beasts that dwelt there, and then ultimately kind of defeated this mastermind behind the church, or at least the man who called himself Pope, this Pontiff Sullivan, who we know has been kind of manipulating or working with Aldrich. Again, as we said before, most of what we've done since we left Lothric has been kind of, riding hot on the trail of, these major figures in kind of the kingdom and everywhere that kind of the church has influenced. So we defeated, Pontiff Sullivan and learned about his kind of manipulation of this profaned flame. But, because this is a part 2, there's more to come. Like, we're actually going to get to the man himself, this, one of our Lords of Cinder. And in fact, it feels so weird to say so late in the season, our second one.
Yeah. Which is kind of strange, the way this game is structured. The fact that we spend so much time on the way. Like, Aldrich is kind of the Lord vessel of Dark Souls 3,
and that he is a vessel for previous lords.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and also, like, when I played it, and I know this happened to a lot of other people, the path that you take to Sullivan in Irithyll, it's easy to miss, or it also looks like it's like an optional area. Like, there might be some treasure here, but it's not somewhere you need to go, because your eyes are immediately drawn to the area called the Distant Manor, which, of course, leads to an area you haven't covered yet, the Profane Capital, and there's another Lord of Cinder there. So for me and a lot of people, Aldrich was actually like the final Lord of Cinder that we put down before Lorien and Lothric.
Yeah.
So for me, there was like, I had a different experience in that there was much more of a build up about the profaned flame and everything, which obviously isn't here yet. But it's an interesting, like, the way that having that non-linear structure means that you'll take different things away from the fight with Sullivan based on how much you know so far.
Yeah. I see that. I mean, I definitely got to that Distant Manor bonfire, but my heuristic of like finishing off an area before I go to a new one just meant I was like, okay, this is an optional area, was what I thought. I'm gonna head back because I know there was that gate up at the top, and there could have been a way that I could have looped back, but for one reason or another, I just turned back when I got to the bonfire. But that's interesting. I guess that is because that little way into the sewer full of the spider ringos is like not the most obvious thing. Unlike most episodes, we're not going to talk about the lore of this area. We've already talked about kind of what Irithyll is, and we're going to talk about the individual parts of that lore that pop up as they pop up, because this is really heavy. We have major quest lines ending, major character quest lines. We have new enigmatic characters being introduced. So we're going to talk about that stuff as it pops up.
Right. So I mean, like, we pick up right where this lets off. Like, we, have this bonfire now in Sullivan's arena, and, this arena kind of becomes this massive cathedral that we can kind of explore.
Yeah. Which we're going to go up to the top floor of that cathedral, but first we go out into Sullivan's little backyard nook, his barbecue PvP zone.
Oh man, it's too bad he died before he could install the horseshoe pit. Like that would have been a real fun thing for his barbecues.
Cole, is this Pontiff Sullivan's backyard wrestling? Don't try this at home.
Yep.
Yeah, what's going on here? Because that's exactly what this is. This is the place for PvP. The times where I've tried to summon help because I don't feel like dealing with the twin beasts on my own, people get annoyed because they're not being summoned. They don't want to be summoned for that. They just want to fight, in this little basin.
Yeah, they just want
crystal lizards.
Yeah, they just want to rock and rumble. Like this whole area actually is just ripe for PvP. And fight clubs and things like that. We're going to see another area a little bit later on that is also pretty popular for it. Like this is a real Fracas focused area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that in working in tandem with the covenant that's connected to this area means that there's just constant invasion.
Yeah, the covenants.
Pretty much. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious though, because you step out and this is a large kind of like semicircular balcony kind of structure here, right off the back. On one hand, it kind of reminds me a little bit of where you find Solaire, at the start. But you look out and you see this kind of structure that's kind of embedded into a mountain off in the distance. Is that any place we've been? Because I've not been able to like draw any kind of conclusion.
I think it's somewhere you'll be going later on. But we're past the spoiler space, aren't we? So
yeah,
I'm pretty sure that's supposed to be Archdragon Peak.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I've seen somewhere like if you zoom in on it, if you binoculars it, like the geography is the same, and you can see it also when you go down to Irithyll dungeon, it kind of wraps around. So when you get to the place where you are going to Archdragon Peak, you're looking at the same thing.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and you can see, I think, the cathedral from Archdragon Peak. If you look far enough to the distance, you can see something. I forget which building exactly.
Yeah, I just I had no real concept of what Archdragon Peak would look like from the outside, I suppose.
Yeah.
So that is good to know that it's actually like representative of someplace.
Yeah, because I mean the way you get there is so strange that there was like an ongoing thing about like initially whether Archdragon Peak is even real or whether it's like the dream or the giant memories or something. But it does appear to be an actual physical place.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it could be, we don't know where it's at, kind of, depending on your interpretation of Dark Souls 3, chronologically or in the... we don't know if it's the Firelink Shrine or the Untented Graves version of Archdragon. Put it in absolutely incomprehensible words for anyone who doesn't know this game.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
because it definitely does seem more alive than anywhere else that we go to.
And also, it's nighttime here on this side, but over there it's kind of midday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like Anchorage.
at least until you press that lever, at which point things get stormy and weird.
Yeah, the nighttime lever.
Yeah. Where you turn on the dark.
Nighttime lever.
Yep. But yeah, like you step out here, and again, this continues to be an incredibly beautiful area. And the moment where this kind of really sunk in for me, where I was at, like I chose to open up my heart and let myself believe that this might be Anor Londo, is like that corner reveal, because you turn left, and then just kind of like the cathedral gives way as you pass it, and then you're just like straight up looking at this buttressed cathedral that fucking is Anor Londo with its spiral staircase. Yeah.
But like I totally missed that was there when at first I just ran through, and like I think a lot of people did. I keep hearing like people were legitimately surprised that was there because they just saw the giants and ran through and didn't actually look up.
Well, there's a lot of visual information to take in. They're the giants. There's the two invaders that pop up, and you're also getting sniped this whole time.
Yeah,
it almost makes you wonder if that is that kind of like being harried. That is intentional to kind of distract you from that.
Yeah.
Like if the kind of enemy density in this area and the way that it's coming from all angles is actually meant to disorient you.
Yeah. Or to at the very least keep your eyes down.
Yeah.
And to potentially make you seek cover, which reveals where the dark stone plate ring.
Oh yeah.
Purple stone plate.
It's the dark stone plate.
Dark stone plate. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a bunch of so right here, right when you kind of cross that corner, there's this amazing view of all these dead giants.
Giants.
Here, some of which are just wounded.
Mhm.
You know, who
Yeah, you can
just-
actually hear them snoring if they're still alive. If you stand next to them, you can hear this like.
That's pretty funny.
um,
But some of them will get up and wreck your shit.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and
While
it
this, I mean,
looks like they were fighting the Aldrich faithful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because those Aldrich
Yeah.
people, the deacons are up on the upper level.
It's frustrating because the game has quite a lot of these like set pieces where enemies will fight each other.
but they don't
If
fight
you
each
come
other here.
yeah, if you get over here where it looks for all the world like the giants were killed because the deacons were standing up zapping them with fireballs. If you wake up the giants, the fireballs just go through them. They just clip through like they're not there.
Bleh.
Mhm.
But weirdly, if you wake up the giants, aggro them, then run off, they will return to where they were, but they'll face the balcony like that's what they're looking at. But there's no actual there's no conflict though. It's really strange. I guess I don't know. Maybe it was like too easy. If the fireballs could kill the giants, you could just run through.
I don't think it'd be too easy.
No.
I think that would have been really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like it reminded me of the Giants memories from Dark Souls 2.
Yeah.
When you're in a very similar thing where there are dead giants everywhere and there's a war going on, and like I've said it again and again whenever we talked about these games, but some of my favorite moments are when you get to a place and it seems like it's still active.
Mhm.
Like because it's so rare. You spend 80% of the game, 90% of the game in like long dead civilizations with just undead monsters kind of keeping guard, and then you get somewhere where it's like, oh, stuff is still happening here. Like when it's one of the things, like, you know, not everybody likes the Duke's Archives, but one of the things about getting in prison there and then having these snake men jailers, you know, and these other prisoners is like, oh, this is still an operation that's happening.
Yeah.
You know, and I really like I could have dug that feeling like, oh, whatever this war is, it's still kind of going on.
Yeah.
Even though that still wouldn't have, like, I don't want to sound like a dummy. I don't actually have a good idea as to why the giants are here fighting the Aldrich faithful.
Look, this is the thing about doing stuff out of order, because like I went to the profane capital, which is like the giant place before here. And there's this whole thing when you get there about Yorm and the giants, like there was a war going on.
Yeah.
And that Sullivan, the pontiff, had like raided the profane capital and stolen
Taken
their
the
profane
flame, yeah.
Mhm.
He'd taken the flame and there's a cat on me. He'd taken the flame and he'd gone into the Irithyll dungeon and there's a giant locked up there. So the second I got here, I'm like, oh, okay, this is the giant's failed attempt to lay siege to
Irithyll or Orlando or the church.
Yeah, this is the giants like trying to fight off Aldrich and Sullivan's army as they're taking on Orlando.
Yeah.
And that
I mean,
possibly
that makes...
there's this giant like massive ballista in the Demon Ruins. I'm talking about stuff that like is this is the problem with it being non-linear. Later on in the game, there is a giant ballista thing that is facing, it's underground, but it's facing this like gap, and you can see Irithyll through the gap, and it kind of looks like
interesting.
Yeah, where they were firing these bolts through the through that gap into Irithyll.
Yeah, like through this like substrata murder hole almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always assumed I had a real curiosity about that the giant, you know, fakey Avalon, you know, Latria reference down there.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it never. Maybe I didn't look where it was necessarily pointed, but that was also a hard, like figuring out what conflict had gone on there. Was also
it's not
key for
pointed
me.
at the gap, but the gap is there.
Okay, so it could have been swiveled at that point.
You can see the gap like as you're in the sort of transitional area between Irithyll and Irithyll Dungeon on that like walkway. You look downward.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
Because I knew that the giants, there was some kind of slave revolt or some kind of thing which made sense to me. I guess even with the profane flame, and this may be, you know, this might not be the case with you, Richard. Like you might have a greater understanding of it. That felt to me like a pretty unfinished kind of storyline.
Yeah, but this is the whole thing because we know there's going to be DLC.
Yeah.
Right.
And from there's going to be DLC. So you have to like kind of weigh up, okay, are they intentionally leaving stuff out so they can do it in the DLC? Because like later on we will see statues of like the primordial serpents.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I think that stuff
They
will
don't show
definitely
up in the
kind of
game
come
at
up.
all, and it's like this
Yeah.
looks like DLC bait.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For sure.
It's that definitely is the case. It was hard for me to make too many summations as to what was actually happening with the profane flame, based on what's in the game.
we could talk about the profane flame, but that's a completely different episode.
Yeah.
But, like, the profane flame lore is a mess.
Yeah.
I've tried like figuring it out, and it's just like it doesn't make any sense chronologically what happened.
It almost feels a little bit like a counterpart to the deep lore. Like maybe it was something that was going to be more thoroughly developed. And was kind of either discarded or kind of put off into this corner, and given this very loose connection.
Like, I promise this is the final thing I'll say about the profane flame, but like the problem I have with it is that there's like a real issue with cause and effect in the way it's written, where it's not clear what event happened first, because there's two events surrounding the profane flame, and it just confuses the crap out of me to this day.
I also find it really confusing, and it kind of like, it doesn't seem in any previous entry in the series, it didn't feel as if they were writing for the DLC quite as much as they are in this one.
Yeah, definitely.
Like that bums me out. Like I'm not super into that. Like what it means is, and every single person I've talked to about Dark Souls 3, even people who are more kind of strident defenders of it than I am, have so many eggs in that basket. Like everyone is just like, oh, this DLC is gonna solve, like, Krusty's coming, like Krusty is coming. Like, and if this DLC is anything short of like a massive revelation, it's going to disappoint so many people. Yeah. Because
like,
everyone
that to
is
me
putting
like
their,
the major reason I haven't rushed into making Dark Souls 3 content, because like I kind of rushed into doing Bloodborne stuff just before the DLC landed, and the DLC disproved like days and days and days of browsing wikis and like watching stuff in freeze frame, and then like, oh no, it's all wrong. Okay.
Yeah. And just it sucks because like it's very apparent that we're in this weird cycle, as people who make content for this, and have been since Dark Souls 2, where, we are kind of throwing effort and elbow grease at what ultimately ends up being kind of something that is incomplete without stuff that comes out later. It was a very, very extreme case with Dark Souls 2, because there was a whole new version of the game, but even the DLC shed new light on some of those questions, but not as many as we would have hoped.
Yeah, and even like the Bloodborne DLC, like me and everyone I talked to was expecting this is going to fill in the Canehurst area, which is the most obviously unfinished part.
Right.
And it does nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's completely different area.
It feels like it's a little side story.
Yeah.
Let's so we have the giants. I think that you're probably right on. Like, I like this idea of them coming from the dungeon, which we'll get to in a couple episodes. For now though, we're dealing with a couple of Drang Knights. So a couple of guys from Drang Lake with the Steve Rule Knights, who charge us. There's so much going on in this part, because there's the giants. This entire time you're getting pelted with fireballs from these deacons with gigantic ranges from up above. So I've always just kind of pulled these guys back to the backyard wrestling zone to fight these two guys.
Mm-hmm. I love these guys because so they, after the Drang Lake Knights disbanded, they kind of became sellswords, and they're this band of mercenaries. It seems like by their placement, they were hired by Sullivan in order to fight these giants, because they had experience fighting giants, just like as institutional memory. My favorite detail, if you kill them, they drop their twin spears, which again is one of these dual wielding weapons, the way that Dark Souls 3 handles dual wielding. And it makes a nod toward the mechanics of Dark Souls 2, because like if you read the description, it says that they were known for their aggressive shieldless tactics, kind of referring to the focus that Dark Souls 2 placed on dual wielding.
Yeah. And you get to do a real goofy little charge with one of these things under each arm if you use it. So it's real silly, which I really like. So you make your way through. There's kind of an articulation point here where you can go the critical path splits. So you can take the high road or the low road here, either through the Valley of Dead Giants or up these kind of stairs past some of those ghosts in order to they're not ghosts, those invisible slave creatures.
Slaves,
The slaves,
in order to go up and fight the deacons. But we'll go to the right first, because there's kind of a cul-de-sac that is interesting. So you head through this Valley of Dead Giants to this structure down at the end, which has a fairly, I think, pretty non-obvious illusory wall.
Oh yeah,
I completely missed it. I had to get told about it.
Yeah, it's just like off back in a corner.
Yeah, it doesn't have any visual signifiers for it, so it's not like, at the end of a hallway or anything like that. It's literally just
and
the
it's not
side
even
of a
like
room.
you can see the place it leads to from somewhere
Exactly.
else and sort of reverse engineer the path. It's like
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it doesn't look like this building is bigger on the the outside than it is on the inside, I guess.
yeah,
But you hit this illusory wall, and there's this really, really long ladder that heads down to what I think is one of the hardest encounters in the game.
yes,
Is that, like, up there with the Nameless King boss fight, which I think is the other super, super hard encounter in the game.
definitely.
This little area for a new covenant, the Aldrich Faithful, where there are two of these Sullivan's Beasts down here that I think are just like, it's flooded. These things are so nasty, and you can draw one of them at a time.
Yeah, that's how I did it.
Yeah, that, like, eventually that's but this took me so many tries. Like, this was
how I did the whole game.
Yeah, me too. Even with that, like, this was such a wall for me. And eventually I got them down. But it's a really, really tough encounter, I think.
Yeah, I still haven't done it. I'm not ashamed to admit it. It just feels so poorly balanced for kind of achievability.
It's
particularly
really
if you run past the two drain guys and go down the ladder and they follow you down, which happened to me. I was trying to bait them into falling off, but they're smarter this time around.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm not down to fight two Watchdogs of the Old Lords. I really am not.
Yeah, like,
Watchdog
what
of the
was
Cold Lords.
Yeah, well, very good.
Thank you.
Yeah, I am not into, I did one Watchdog of the Cold Lord was too much. Two of them is definitely too much. Yeah. You get significant rewards for doing it.
Right.
Because you get the this version of the Ring and Favor and Protection, which one thing I really like is how that has been kind of fading throughout the series.
Yeah.
Just the equivalent. So the one in Dark Souls 2 had less of an effect. Same thing with Havel's Ring, which has less of an effect now. Like, you do get this sense of, like, that's one of the ways the game mechanically shows that the world is in a worse state, even though it's trying to contrast different shades of gray.
Yeah.
Although it kind of undoes it by throwing in, like, the +1 and +2 variations later on.
That's true. Yeah. It, like, the more you the main to do this. So these things respawn, but if you kill both of them, they don't.
Right.
The second one you kill gives you the Ring of Favor and Protection, which is decent. But the other thing
it's just the Ring of Favor. It doesn't have any protection because if you take it off, it doesn't get destroyed. Like,
it doesn't matter. And it's a minor boost all your principal 3 kind of derived statistics.
Mm-hmm.
In the corner though, like, I love this, like, finding this was a real great creepy moment is Archdeacon McDonald. This is the third of the archdeacons we've run into. After Royce and what's his head?
Klimt.
Yes,
Klimt.
Klimt.
There we go.
Yeah.
Klimt. Do we actually run into Klimt, or do we just run into Royce?
So the idea, since he served Rosaria, is that he is probably one of the grubs.
Yeah,
that would make sense because there's, like, one with a staff outside.
Yeah. So I think that's Klimt. There's nothing that directly says that. No. But that's my guess.
Yeah, I think that is a pretty safe guess. If it's not specifically that one, then he is part of the teeming mass of slugmen. Maybe he's the one who we found unceremoniously ditched by the river. Yeah.
That's got heal, doesn't it? So it makes sense if it were a cleric.
Yeah. But like he cast off his bident or whatever and joined Rosaria for the rebirth.
Yeah.
But yeah, like this guy. What's his name? McDonald. He is, like, dead and bloated and giant off in the corner.
And
like,
he has these, like, black fronds growing out of his eye sockets.
Yep.
It's such a good image.
Do we want to talk about the fronds? Because they're kind of interesting.
We alluded to it a little bit last time, but it's that's the influence of the profane flame, right?
I have not a clue, but like McDonald's got them growing out of his eyes. The like deacons of the deep enemies around this area, they have them too. They have them going up the bottom of their robes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But the actual deacons of the deep that you fight back at the cathedral don't have them. So
I mean, is that so it wouldn't just be proximity to the flame, because we see a lot of, tree kind of artifacts back even in Lothric as well.
Yeah. The confusing thing is it's not clear what they're like meant to be. They're just like these fibers.
It doesn't feel to me that like the trees are one thing. right? So it's kind of, it's one of those things that it feels mildly like sloppy is the wrong word, but having kind of branch imagery and root imagery kind of symbolize multiple things if they truly do. Feels kind of like not best practices, because we've been seeing people turn into trees since the beginning of the game. You know, like that's a high wall thing, but it's so different than this. I don't think that the hollows that are turning into trees feel the same or look the same as the faithful that are having them grow out of their eyes.
Well, do you think that like the hollows that are turning into trees, specifically the ones in Lothric, they look very much like that pus of man stuff? Which is implied to be that's humanity kind of bursting out of you. Yeah. So could this be that if you take too much human dregs instead of too much humanity, your human dregs go wild and you grow these like wilty little roots instead of turning into a proper tree?
Maybe. But then you also have somebody like Sullivan who sprouts these branch-like butterfly wings.
And who is not brought down by it, like he's empowered by it.
Yeah, and like annoyingly, it's not like clear if Sullivan qualifies as one of the Aldrich faithful, because it seems more like he sees himself as in charge of Aldrich. He's not a worshipper of Aldrich, whereas all these other guys are. So it's like
he's a peer.
And Aldrich himself doesn't really have them, does he? He's like a slug.
He's a skull slug.
Yeah, there's not much that actually defines Aldrich.
So it is tricky. Like it definitely at this point feels like trees are not the same thing. Like I went through so many tree phases where like at first I saw them, I'm like, oh, it's an Aldea thing. Like there's dragons here, there are people turning into trees. You know, this is maybe Aldea. And then I was like, no, you know, Aldea is mostly if not entirely disregarded by this. This is humanity. Maybe they turn into the pilgrim butterflies, which are, you know, giant eventually. And then we get to these trees, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I don't know. I wish that there had been a different symbol for corruption.
Well, I guess, like, a lot of Dark Souls 3's, like, characters, there's an emphasis on them sort of finding a third option out of this, like, fire dark cycle. So it could be that, like, depending on what path you're taking, you're turning into a different kind of tree, maybe.
Yeah.
Because Aldrich's whole thing is he sees beyond fire and dark into what he calls the age of the deep sea.
Right.
And that's what he's essentially trying to create by eating Gwyndolin. Spoilers. Right. And like, do you want to talk about like the whole, like, because obviously it's a cathedral of the deep, but here we don't get any human dregs there, but we start getting human dregs at this point. And do you want to talk about human dregs? Because it's kind of an interesting concept that it's something that's vaguely lost in the English one because it's a Shinto thing.
Well, yeah, tell us about the origins of that.
It's actually something that I know about because it plays a big role in Bloodborne. Is this the Shinto concept of everything has to flow? Like water has to keep flowing to maintain its purity, and if water stagnates, then that's like the equivalent. That's sort of not evil in a moral sense, but in a spiritual sense. If something stops flowing, it stagnates, and when it stagnates, then it accumulates filth, and like things start growing in it, like bugs and things start breeding in it.
Right.
So in Bloodborne, there's this guy called Volta who goes on and on about the filth of humanity, the corruption of humanity, and he gives you this thing called the what's his rune called again? Impurity.
Yeah.
It's called impurity, but in the Japanese one, it's called stagnation. So he's talking about that concept that humanity is stagnating, and because we're stagnating, we're turning into beasts, and we have these little, like, wriggling insects living in us. So when you come to the Aldrich Faithful, they're collecting these things called human dregs that are described explicitly as this is the heaviest stuff in the body. It sinks to the bottom.
Yeah, and so it'll drag humans down to, like, unknown depths.
So it's stagnancy. It doesn't flow. And, like, McDonald... When you get, I think the staff he gives you, it says something like, MacDonald was delighted in the stagnating souls of the cathedral. And like, he's in this room and the room is full of water, but the water isn't moving, the water is stagnant. And in the stagnancy, we find these human dregs. So it's like Aldrich's Age of Deep seems to be creating a world in which nothing flows anymore, in which everything is just this like still deep pit of water.
Yeah.
And that's what he sees, So that's what human dregs seem to be like. If you basically render people down into, like, kind of primordial slime, you have a human dreg.
And you even see like the sprite for the human drag. It looks kind of like a wilted, eyeless humanity sprite. Like it is a humanity stripped of something essential. Yeah. And so and so this drops. And what's funny is like, you know, that description, if you just look at the Age of the Deep, it actually sounds a little bit like the you know, the Great Still that happened before the first flame
I was just about
lit.
to say that. Yeah, it sounds like
nothing lives
before there was
dies.
disparity.
Yeah, where there's just grayness and there's no extremes. Everything is just stagnant.
Right.
Yeah.
I that's really interesting. The previous to this kind of like Age of the Deep Sea, because even just the phrasing, the deep sea points in a bunch of different directions.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I've read people who think that it is like a Bloodborne either reference, like Easter egg, or confirmation that it is in the same universe. Like he's talking about bringing about the world of Bloodborne, which I don't know. To me, what it really seemed like, and this is, you know, what I've said a couple times this season, is it feels to me like, you know, every Dark Souls game has been in this age of fire, and this cycle between, you know, with this Age of Fire. Previous to this, before Dark Souls 3 came out, Miyazaki talked about how it was a turning point for the series. The series was going to continue, but turn in a totally different direction. And that's what I felt like this was a reference to. Like this was we're gonna finally explore what a different age looks like, that is kind of free of the cycle, that is a different third thing, but actually get to spend some time in it instead of it just being a threat behind one of the endings.
Dark Souls 1 ends like, I don't think Miyazaki was thinking in terms of sequels with Dark Souls 1. So it ends on a note of finality, essentially. Either you have linked the fire or Age of Dark has happened. Then 2 comes along, and 2 throws in this idea of actually it's a constant cycle. And like there's not, 1 never hints at there being a cycle, because presumably that's the first time the fire is linked by someone other than Gwyn. And then Scholar of the First Sin comes out, and Aldia's whole thing in that is like there's a way out of this. We can resolve this sort of dialectical contradiction between fire and dark and find this third option. And then Dark Souls 3 comes along, and it's all about people finding third options, finding ways out of this cycle. It's
it's like the democratization of destabilization almost. We're all trying to find a way out, and this brings about its own kind of corruption and awful forces, and kind of like
what you're trying to get out of it isn't necessarily going to be good. I don't know if it's necessarily inherently corrupting. It's like the ways out of this is the natural. I mean, letting it die is the natural order of the world. Yeah. But the natural, switching to an entirely different paradigm is kind of unnatural and brings with that.
But see, even living and dying isn't necessarily natural to the world, because at the very beginning of Dark Souls 1, you're told that it's the fire that brings about life and death, because prior to the dragons don't die, and the trees don't die. It's just nothing happens, and then. Well,
I guess I didn't mean dying. I meant that letting the flame fade. Like extending the Age of Fire is not natural.
Yeah, it's this massive cosmological regression to the mean. That ultimately
it is the
happens.
first sin.
It's not natural, and it's getting worse the longer it continues onward.
Yeah,
right.
It's like the Link the Fire ending of this game is just like you've maybe bought like a couple of weeks.
You
just put another notch on the belt, and then you wait for the next one to come.
Yeah,
and
it is.
All these characters, like Aldrich things, they seem to be very aware that like something has to actually change. There has to be some sort of like revolutionary event that changes the paradigm everyone's living in. Right. And to Aldrich, it says Aldrich ruminated on the fading the fire. That inspired his vision of the Age of Deep, and then that's what inspires him to do what he does. Yeah.
Right. He also just liked it. He also like really, really enjoyed doing it too, which is like the reason why, if you kind of look at it in terms of like what would be the flaw, because it's not an altruistic act, but it's one that like ultimately, is for the world. However, like in that really kind of classic sense, this kind of gluttony, or this fact that he actually hungered to do this and had this desire for it, you could read that clouded him from actually being able to achieve this.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like he ate Gwendolyn in order to make it happen, or he ruminated on it, was going to attempt to make it happen, but he's also imprisoned in this thing, eating this god for a very long time because
how convenient that the world, in order for the world to change, somebody needs to be massively powerful and do these depraved things. Well, okay, I'll just go and be this person. I'll go ahead and do that stuff. Like, how convenient.
Yeah, and he's the one who becomes the Lord of... They make a point of stressing he's Lord of Cinder because of his might, not because of his virtue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like a horrible, like, not even really a human being anymore. He's like the thing, but... Yeah.
He's in no position to usher us into it. I will not vote for him. So this opens up. McDonald here gives you the Aldrich Faithful Covenant, which is our second like Forest Hunters style covenant. Here, and I get invaded by it more than any other covenant, and this area is already hard. So this is my most like I get really annoyed with this covenant.
There's a small portion that we missed that I want to make sure that we hit because it has like a very small lore beat. Instead of going here, you actually turn back and double back into Sullivan's Cathedral. You can go up into the roof and fight a mimic that contains the Golden Ritual Spear.
Oh yeah,
which kind of alludes to the presence of these Dark Moon Knights.
This lack of presence at this point.
Right. Yes. Like this is a relic from, like almost a profane thing. They were given to the Dark Moon Knights before Sullivan took over.
Sullivan's basically purged them.
Right.
Yeah. And we'll see it. We'll see another one soon.
Mm-hmm.
Another one of these spears, rather. So you head up to these, you can go up, as we mentioned, and fight the deacons up there. There's kind of a line of deacons. There's several of them hiding in the woods. But in either case, you're kind of trying to find this corner that leads to these buttresses that are heading up. And even before you get to there, you're going to start getting pelted with arrows.
Yep.
Because if these are some Anor Londo ass Silver Knight archers, except they're 1,000 times worse now.
Yep.
Like they're so much harder to fight. Like I don't like it's just a stamina poise thing, and then that electric attack that they have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're little,
which like isn't a buff, so you can't interrupt it.
there's it just happens sometimes, and sometimes it's a 2-hit combo afterwards. Sometimes it's a 3-hit combo, and just like this is, I mean, again, not to sound like a broken record, but like this the first couple of playthroughs I did of this, I had a build that was suited for Dark Souls 3. The second I tried to step out of that build, I'm meeting all kinds of resistance because like with a lighter weapon, I cannot interrupt. Like I couldn't interrupt these guys very well before because that's not really a thing. But now I'm feeling it. Like I'm getting interrupted really badly trying to fight these things, trying to do this with my luck build, where I'm getting like really frustrated fighting them. Yeah.
The thing is, like, if you want to platinum the game by getting the ears, you'll get really, really good at fighting the Silver Knights by the end of that.
Yeah, I'm not even grinding. I'm just saying, even just moving through it for another time. Like I find them pretty frustrating to fight.
Yeah.
Whereas I used to love fighting Silver Knights. Guys.
All the joy is gone.
Yeah, they're really fun to parry.
We're not making memories anymore.
Yeah. And now it's just they're just super aggro, super immune to being stunned.
Yeah.
And they cover each other in really devious ways, which I actually like the enemy placement here. I just like as duels, like I don't like them very much.
Yeah, I just beat feet through this, honestly. Like I've killed a handful of these guys, but much like the first go at Anor Londo, the real secret is to move through this. I love this section as both a quote and also a fuck you, because it is one of those explicit times where a callback is trying to get you to rely on your previous knowledge, making you feel cocky, like, hey, I recognize this, I know this. You make your run up the first buttress that you see, and then all of a sudden, no, this is not like before, because there's a parallel buttress and somebody's going to shoot you off from the side.
Yeah,
like that is such a, like, I laughed and laughed and laughed when that happens.
Yeah, I haven't been hit by one of these guys' arrows unless I'm fighting another one of them, because I have this kind of feeling. Oh, thank you. I don't think the archers are that bad, guys. I mean, there's so many things I think are really hard. We talked about.
No, I don't think it's that hard. It's just
hey, Kole, tell me again how you thought Pontiff Sullivan was real easy.
No, I was just I was. I was just being a dick about you being a dick. No. It's it's not that they were that hard. It was just that it was a real surprise, and I got cocky. I thought that was a really good quote. But you're right. Like, because it is very similar, and because they're still using the same weapon, when to dodge.
Yeah, I just have that roll, that timing. If I'm like walking down the street and somebody like played that, losing wave, I'd probably dive onto the ground and break my shoulder, and then
you would
go to the emergency room.
You would do a roll and break all your electronics.
Yeah,
in your pockets and your backpack. No.
Yeah,
and also just like the general design of the area, the way that like you have one lot, you have the faithful spamming the fireballs at you. So you kind of don't expect to go from one thing where you're dodging projectiles to dodging different projectiles from like higher up. You expect that's like that wave. Now we're over that hump. There's going to be something different, and it blindsides you with this like.
They turned Interlando into a bullet hell game.
Yeah, it's a different kind of projectile. It's like further away, faster, like non-homing things just raining on you.
Yeah.
They require really different timing to dodge, and really different consequence as well. So like. The difference between, if you have a decent fire-resistant shield, you could block the Aldrich Faithful things. You don't really want to block the silver arrows.
No.
Or the giant arrows. But yeah, there's a bunch of these jerks. I dislike them. Also, I mean, here's the thing, too. And somebody suggested a pretty cogent reason why this could be, even though there's not anything in the game really to suggest it. And we talked about this last episode or in the appendix. Like, why are these guys here?
Yeah.
Like, the fact that these were illusions summoned by Gwendolyn was so cool in Dark Souls 1. And the best, like, explanation someone said as kind of an idea was like, if Aldrich ate Gwendolyn, he probably has some of his magic. We know he can learn magic through devouring and dreaming. So he learned how to make these illusions. The descriptions kind of suggest a continuity. The item descriptions on their armor say like the Silver Knights still protect the royal family. So maybe even just like the part of Gwendolyn that was alive is summoning them.
Yeah,
I might be misremembering, but isn't it just the gold sentinels that are the illusion, and like the Silver Knights stick around if you kill Gwendolyn?
No, they're all gone.
Silver Knights are gone. The only thing that sticks around are the painting guardians and the brass or the Darkling, Lady of the Darkling.
Yeah, we got some feedback and some follow up in the appendix here, but I will kind of bring the main point forward for this. These knights actually bleed when you kill them. The illusory knights they dissipated in Dark Souls 1, whereas these guys they just turn into corpses and they die.
Also they drop the proof of a Concord kept item.
Yeah,
which implies that they are working for Gwendolyn, not for Aldrich.
Yeah. And so the idea being that they had this armor laying around, and so they decided to kind of restore the order for this the same purpose kind of but perverted to serve Aldrich instead of Gwendolyn.
Or alternatively, they're serving Aldrich unknowingly, thinking he is Gwendolyn.
Yeah,
because he looks like Gwendolyn at this point.
He only appears from the shoulders up.
It's like, no, but sir, my liege, why do you only appear in a puppet theater?
Well, to be fair, Gwendolyn was like a bunch of snakes from the waist down to begin with.
Yeah,
that's true. He had a real butterface. They're real butter snakes. Here's a real set of butter snakes.
Delicious.
I would have been into like that. All makes sense. I don't think it would have been too much to have something that suggests that breaking continuity, or suggests that was either the armor being repurposed or the line being reignited or something like that.
Yeah.
If at the very least, like yes, you can make a version that logically follows. It doesn't undo the very cool thing that Dark Souls 1 does, but it feels like an appendix kind of tacked onto it.
Yeah.
Because like I love that they were illusions in Dark Souls 1. That's one of the coolest like moments in that game. Is that realization, and then just like no, we can just put other people in the armor. Like I get that that's the case. However, it's weirdly that's like one of the less satisfying parts of this area.
Yeah, it feels worse.
Like I mean they couldn't have had it be a new enemy because they needed to do the callback and they needed to have the arrow, they have them tactically be the same. But it did kind of bum me out. Yeah. Like even if they looked largely similar but had some kind of tell. Like what if these guys, since they are now inadvertently serving Aldrich, what if they had this kind of corruption, these roots or whatever, bring out something that
there's
kind of
the one
that's
got the glowing eyes, which
there's a red eye version.
Something going on with it, but it's not really clear.
Yeah.
We get Shiva the East's ashes
Yeah.
over here.
Yeah. Which puts some of the most effective dex weapons pretty deep into the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think the suggestion is necessarily that Shiva was here. I don't think there's a lot of loreness to this. I think it's just
Had to go
it's
somewhere.
like the Paladin's ashes.
Yeah.
Well, it might be like a little gag about, because originally, like, the idea was Shiva would escape to the painted world.
Oh yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
Yeah,
And this
so
is
like
near-
it could
near
be
the-
like, yeah, this is Shiva. Canonically, maybe did escape to the painted world and then he died in
Yep.
Anor Londo.
and then was spit back out here.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can also get the wooden ring, which again is diminished. It just kind of offsets the low durability of those dex weapons that you get from his ashes.
Yeah.
But there's a small doorway here. If you're able to get past this tangle of the Silver Knights, you go to an incredibly lore significant area once again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let's talk about Henri and the things that happen here in the Dark Moon Shrine.
Yep, because you go in where you would have gotten the Dark Moon bonfire here, and there's a statue of Gwyn, which again is illusory.
An illusion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you go down
Yep.
to the shortened version of the hallway where you fought Gwendolyn, and all of a sudden, that's Gwyn's tomb there, still empty, still dark,
Yep.
still kind of devoid of stuff. You can find the
And
brass.
there's still a flower on top of it as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
And you can also find the brass set, which is pretty neat, and a ring which changes your animations to that of if you're male, it'll do the female animations. If you're female, you'll do the male, which kind of plays into both Gwendolyn and also Henri.
Yes.
And like the gender stuff that is going on there. But yeah, this is a place where if you have kind of followed Uria's quest and let Henri succumb to kind of the whims of the Sable Church of Londor, where you can make things ready to get one of the kind of like harder and more obscure endings.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So
where do we want to start?
yeah. This is pretty tricky. There's a lot to this, and there's an articulation point too. So we're going to talk about what happens here. We're also going to talk about a little bit later in the episode what happens. If you remember, we talked about the illusory assassin, assassin using chameleon in the last episode.
Mm-hmm.
If you murder that assassin, then you move past this,
Right.
and we move to the other ending for Henri. But we're going to talk about the bad ending for Henri.
Yeah.
Good ending for the quest. At least
They're both bad endings.
Yeah, they are both exactly. There's no good endings. Henri just spoiler, like every NPC in Dark Souls 3, Henri ends with a mercy killing if you do her good thing.
Yep.
After you eventually do her quest. But this is the one of the more complicated things. So Yuria we talked about. If you get all of the levels of hollowing from Yol, he'll die. Yuria shows up. She has a real brief moment where she has you kill the sorcerer boy.
Yeah,
Orbeck.
Orbeck, because he claims to be this, or to want to become this Lord of Hollows, and she has determined that no, this is in fact your destiny.
Yes, you are going to be. You're being groomed for this. So, however, you don't have enough of these hollowing items. Why is the name escaping me?
The dark sigil.
The dark sigil.
Not sigils from Planescape. The dark sigil. There we go.
Yes.
Which again I love. Like these are bottomless holes that weep humanity goo.
That
from
are
your body.
they're on your body here. You can get 5 of them kind of naturally through the game, but you need 8 to get the ending.
Right.
You need to get more of them, so you have to get them from somewhere. So if you have been following her quest line, but talking to her a lot. You have all of the sigils from Yule. She'll say, your bride awaits you in the Dark Moon tomb, or in the Dark Moon Shrine, rather. You head down this hallway, and there's one of these little, pilgrims at the end, who gives you a sword here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is
Sword of the
significant.
Bowel. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. You can't use it as a weapon. It looks really cool. I wish you could use it as a weapon. I like those ring hilt kind of things. But when you head in here, our buddy is here.
Yeah.
Henri's here.
Yeah. Henri is here, and he or she is laid out on the altar with a white cloth over their face.
Yeah. And the idea being that the assassin, rather, or the pilgrim that was being controlled by Chameleon, knocked her out or something like that and put her here.
Right, kidnapped her.
Or even just killed her so it accrues more hollowing.
Yeah. That's true too. You could be killing her once she's dead. I felt like it had more pathos if you were actually murdering her by slamming the sword into her face.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
it's possible
not clear because of the things over. Because annoyingly, like corpse models continue blinking, so it's not clear who's actually dead or not.
So she's lying here in the tomb, and you walk up and you get this kind of like, very, very like John Woo-esque cutscene.
Yeah.
Slamming your sword into her face or his face, and little feathers coming out, and kind of sprinkling you, and then this kind of black energy going up your arms and infesting your body.
Yeah.
Which is presumably that's Henri's dark sigils that we're absorbing.
Exactly.
To give us the full complement that he or she had 3.
Yeah.
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 And so this is the marriage ceremony. Henri has been prepared, and this is kind of the reason that Dark Souls 3, as a proponent of traditional marriage, makes this NPC sex opposite of yours.
It's Adam and Henri, not Adam and Henri.
Like you don't actually do anything that would be relevant. You literally just stab them in the face.
Right. But this is the way that I love this kind of callback, because after you complete this and go back and speak to Yuria, talks about like, hey, now you are poised to usurp the fire. Don't do what everybody else is telling you to do. Take it for your own. And basically says, hey, this is the path to become a true monarch.
Yep.
Which, is a tremendous resonant theme from Dark Souls 2 that is, again, making it. Yeah.
It's the thing that Londor lacks, because Londor doesn't have a lord.
Right. It has
and the whole
these 3
thing
ruling
that they're
sisters.
playing up right from the beginning is that all the lands of the Lords of Cinder have they're all converging around, I almost called it Drangleic. They're all converging around Lothric.
Right.
Londor doesn't have a lord, so Londor isn't connected to Lothric, and that's why these people have to go on this pilgrimage.
Right.
They've got to walk across this massive desert of ash to actually get to Lothric, because it's not being drawn there naturally.
Right.
Yeah.
Huh.
The so presumably the mechanics of this are, magic sword, I guess. Like a magic sword is what's doing it. As much as I found this, I found this like a little bit too oblique. Like I missed this my first playthrough. I think it's pretty easy to miss. We talked about how fiddly Henri's questline is.
Yeah. They so clearly intend you to miss it on your first playthrough that on your second, if you do complete the thing before you've even been to Irithyll, Yuria will just flat out say, "Hey, your spouse is waiting for you in Anor Londo."
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's good to know that that's in this game.
So is it I have to leave this game running and then throw in the Dark Souls 1 CD?
It's like Banjo-Kazooie.
Yeah. It's like Sonic and Knuckles.
Yeah.
You plug it in.
Yeah.
So as much as the fiddliness of this, how easy it is to miss, I'm kind of, is kind of a grander issue I have with Dark Souls 3. But the actual like evocativeness of it, the thing I really like, and one of the things I like about it, and one of the reasons why I choose to believe that Henri is still alive, even though maybe she isn't, is that that little cloth over her face is such a little bit of dignity, it's this weird little touch of sophistication in this very barbaric thing.
Yeah.
This like, you don't have to actually see it, and she doesn't have to see it coming if she's awake.
Right.
And like it's really kind of beautiful and great. Like it's a really, really relevant detail to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also it covers up that like she's very badly hollowed as well. Like if you mod the game or whatever to remove helmets, Henri has like a hollow. She looks like you if you've hollowed.
Right.
Yeah.
Throughout the game. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm way into this. I'm way into everything that kind of like leads to that usurping the flame kind of side of it. Yeah. Big thumbs up.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Like it was really cool to finally see it. Even though I definitely missed it on my first playthrough. Pretty badly, even though Henri was here. So like on my first playthrough, she was lying here dead and had her sword, but there was no marriage ceremony.
Right.
I was like, oh, weird. What happened? Like the last time I talked to you, you were fine. and it was because of that chameleon assassin, which kind of drove me. It's not really an assassin. I don't know why I keep saying that. I think it's been referred to as such online, and that's
it's not clear what it is.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
Like an agent. Yeah.
But it was so the first time it was surreal and frustrating to run into her because it's like, oh, I fucked up. And then actually figuring out what it is, it has that sense. I think this is part of what Kole is probably picking up too, of almost like a survival horror-esque weirdness without literal meaning.
Mm-hmm.
Like calling this a wedding is such a weird phrase for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a Silent Hill ritual.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
The way that Uriah describes it is like, you can't be a lord unless you also have a spouse.
Right.
So it's like entirely symbolic.
Yeah, I mean, like it is this motion that you're going through.
Or alternatively, like, we can only get up to 5 dark sigils from Yol. After that, he says like you've exceeded what you can. You've attained like maximum hollowness.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be that like literally the only way to get over, I know they've quantified it, the only way to get over like 5 out of 5 hollowing is to absorb it from someone else.
Yeah. You possibly even just using the sword. Yeah.
Because it's like you're drawing out what Yol drew out of you, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the first thing I thought of with the wedding is I wonder if this is just the Sable Church's, the reason why it's called a wedding is because there is a way that, because originally, I started thinking of the Lords and the Daughters of Manus from Dark Souls 2.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there was a way in which like the two of us could have claimed it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it requires it's weird that's quantified, but maybe it requires a certain level of this hollowing, and maybe a kinder culture than the Sable Church of Londor, like something slightly nicer than the Black Church. Would have been something like we could have been a monarch and a queen, like in Dark Souls 2, but because their rituals have degraded as such, and because they are so darkly practical, this is what a marriage is now, is you just taking that power literally and unto yourself rather than sharing it with another being. Which is like kind of resonant with the idea of a marriage or a partnership in a romantic sense, where it is like, in a very real way, a long romantic partnership is combining your powers. Like even if you can't shoot magic and shit, which like sorry son, but like even if you can't do cool X-Men stuff, it is sharing, like you're putting two heads together to kind of try to form a greater whole is the idea.
And
so like it also sort of mirrors what Gwendolyn does, what Guinevere does, in that Guinevere leaves and she marries, it's implied, the former King Lothric.
Mm-hmm. And
like a bunch of the characters we run into are like Gwendolyn's kids. Gwendolyn and Guinevere. Don't name people after yourself. It's confusing.
Kimbo Slice. Come on.
Narcissist.
Yeah. Name them Yorshka.
No. So it also kind of like makes a little bit of sense. So if dark sigils are community property, that the leaders of this, of the Sable Church of Londor rather, would want to, kind of consolidate that into one person, because one person is easier to control.
Sure.
Especially if, there's somebody like Henri who has shown this entire way to be incredibly principled, right? And kind of came across her dark signs, either by accident or just kind of like over the course of her quest, doesn't really know what she has. And like this is kind of like, okay, ripe for the taking through this marriage.
Like if not principled, at least like non-ambitious.
Right.
And also odd in that like it has to be us. Like Uriah can't make herself the queen of the lady of Londor. She can't marry Yol. Right. So it's like something to do maybe with being unkindled.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say that.
Like you have to be
Yeah. Or it could be a situation like Sullivan with Aldrich. Like we need somebody who is powerful to actually go and take this bullet so that they can stay on the outside and pull the strings.
And like there's this one of those things that's like maddeningly kind of implied in extra textual stuff, but not in the game, that as an unkindled, we're not necessarily one person who died. We're like a conglomeration of various like ash that's kind of fused into one. Although confusingly, we get an origin at the beginning, but like it's I think it's one of the early interviews. It's like Miyazaki says that like you're playing a character, but your character is like all these different like sort of pieces of ash that have fused together, almost.
Mhm.
So that could be why, because we're made out of different people, that like we have more maybe hollowing potential than a regular undead does. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been very easy for them to make it 5 and 5, you know, as
Yeah.
opposed to 5 and 3. So there's something special about our character that they're able to
Yeah,
do
and like
that.
the way that Yol is so keen to serve us,
Yeah.
Yeah,
yet
exactly.
doesn't have any interest in serving with like
Henri.
a half a dozen other people at Filing Shrine that he could be
And-
serving.
And Henri, which arguably is easier to manipulate, like, you know, falls for this kind of trick, is able to be overpowered by one of these pilgrims or tricked or what have you. You know,
Yeah.
so, and who wants one thing that, because after, you know, Henri gets her way or his way, as we talk about, Henri just kind of goes hollow. So
Yeah.
presumably at that point, you know, once she gets her way, you know, or like they could have traded that to her. She seems easier to manipulate because she has a clearer goal than we do.
Yeah,
like you
she's
could
driven
say, like-
entirely by revenge.
Yeah, like we'll storm Anor Londo and give you Aldrich's head. You know, all you have to do is stab this nameless player in the face, or you know, hold his hand and argue about money. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. Like I dig it. This is
Yeah.
really cool. And as far as like so that's the way that worked. You know, there's another way that her quest line can end, which we'll talk about in just a minute, actually. So we leave there, and we actually find the gigantic spiral staircase from Anor Londo with a lever that sends it down for us to grab it, and we can send it up and go to Anor Londo. But there's a little side path here.
Yeah, again,
Yeah.
just in this very callback dense place, we can step onto an invisible walkway like we would have found in the Crystal Caves and walk out towards this kind of isolated tower that is roughly where the cathedral that held the painting would have been, off to the left of the cathedral, and then take a drop and meet Yorshka, who for whom the church at the bottom here is named.
So before we get to Yorshka, real quick, so the way that you get to Yorshka, this path, what made you guys want to walk across? Nothing.
I was literally trying to jump to my death to see if on the way down I could see if there was another way to get into that tower.
Oh, that's interesting.
So I just leapt off and it's Crystal Caves. Okay.
This bugs me. This like one instance of Crystal Caves here. Like
Yeah.
I don't like it. Like it's frustrating to me. You also can't fall off it. It has guardrails, which like is fine, but also why haven't you always had those things, buddy? But yeah, you can't fall off it. It's not actually dangerous.
Right.
You cannot walk off the edge of this. But it just like this feels also hostile. Like getting there, like you just kind of have to assume. You know, there hasn't been one up to this point. It's not the point of the area.
No,
it's unique in the game.
Yeah,
kind of bugs me. Now let's get over to Yorshka.
I don't know if it came through. I took that leap of faith because I saw the orange signs.
Yeah, I saw a sign too.
Yeah,
or I never would have done that. I would, especially since. So it's frustrating because it is on next to a spiral staircase, which is previously how we have gotten in the series to like distant towers and stuff. So my thinking was when I first saw that over there. Was like, oh, once I get inside, there's going to be a lever or something that's going to change the staircase even more. It's going to spiral up a third time, and there'll be a bridge. You know, that would make sense. That's how we get to distant things in Dark Souls. But I just, and then when I came back from the bonfire, there was an orange sign, and I was like, oh, well, shit, and then just walked across.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I don't really have any other than it feels kind of like a little bit cheap. Like I don't have anything great about it, except it just feels kind of shitty.
I think that like one of my problems with Dark Souls 3 is that there's kind of no middle ground. Things are either completely obscurantist to the point where I don't know how you're supposed to figure them out other than dumb luck, or it holds your hand way too much.
Yeah.
And there's not really a middle ground.
We talked about that. I think about that also in terms of lore personally, where I feel like a lot of the lore stuff is either 100% spelled out. So that's why every single Dark Souls lore person has a Nameless King video that are largely the same, or they're like 40% filled out like the Profaned Flame,
Yes.
where there's just not quite enough to get a complete story, and
Yeah.
it doesn't have that tantalizing like 70%.
Well,
that
I
the previous
think it's
games
really
had.
just like it's an effect of the game having like 3 different directors.
Yeah.
Like there's not a single, like I don't want to, I sometimes, like, I want to be clear, I'm not coming across as like Miyazaki-sama is a genius, no one can ever approach him, everyone who works on his games just ruins them. I mean that, like, if you have 3 people working on something, it's inevitably going to be pulled in 3 different directions, even if they, it's nothing to do with the talent of the people involved.
Right. Any 3 people.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
too many
so
cooks.
like Demon Souls, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, extremely consistent. Like Dark Souls 2, not that consistent because it changed hands, but then Dark Souls 2 DLC, very consistent because that was Yui Tanimura from the beginning.
Yes.
Rather
Yeah.
than Yui
And then-
Tanimura like stitching together something from Tomohiro Shibuya's original version.
Mhm. And then Dark
Yeah.
Souls 3, you do have that mark of kind of different authorship that leads
Yeah.
to these confused kind of dangling threads, which again puts a lot of eggs in that DLC.
Yep. Fingers
So-
crossed, because that's all we can do.
God, I hope there's going to be eggs. Give me some eggs. But let's. So one
Well,
of
he is
these
obsessed
things.
with Berserk.
Yeah. One of these things. So that I think is kind of both kind of adequately and inadequately. Like there's a lot of stuff about Yorshka, but most of the stuff feels like connections rather than it's kind of similar to this. But
And we
that I can't
know
form
already from people data mining it that there's cut Yorshka stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yorshka feels unfinished to me, but let's talk about Yorshka, because she is
Okay.
a weirdly insignificant NPC. Like feels very significant, but doesn't have very much. You don't do very much with her other than Covenant stuff.
You were saying before, like, the church is named after Yorshka.
Mhm.
That's not entirely clear, because if you get Yorshka's, you can get Yorshka's chime if you kill her, right? Which after the ear gathering quest you will want to. And then that says to her, it says on the chime that Yorshka's brother, i.e. Gwendolyn, presented her with this chime along with another gift, her name. So she didn't know her name was Yorshka until Gwendolyn showed up and said, your name is Yorshka. And then like on the base of that church, there's that, not the base, it's sort of in the middle, there's the weapon called the Yorshka Spear that says this treasure was gifted to the Yorshka Church. So it's actually, it could be read in one of 2 ways. It could be read that the church is named after her, or that she has taken her name from the church. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the chronology is just hard to figure out there. I read about that too, like this theory, this idea that this. I mean, there's not very much to support this. Now that I'm gonna say it out loud, it seems silly, but like people who say that Yorshka was made by Gwendolyn and is somehow kind of empowered by naming. Like she is a construct as well. And then once she was given a name, and that makes sense too, like the idea of just naming her after this established thing. But it could be the other way as well too, because we don't know the chronology. Like we don't actually know when that church was built.
Right.
Yeah. And also, like Gwendolyn's gone, but Yorshka perseveres, so she can't be entirely empowered by him.
Yeah, she, like Gwendolyn's gone. She doesn't even know what happened to him, and that's like a major thing for her. She
Well, no,
doesn't.
that's the thing is, like, he lies to her. He tells her that he's sick and he has to go because he's ill, and she has to take over the job because in his stead.
Right.
But like the implication seems to be he knew he was going to be killed by Aldrich. So in order to spare her feelings, he lied to her and said, I'm very ill.
Yeah.
I'm going to go away for a while.
Yeah. Or Aldrich started the process and somehow passed it along, and it was an act of deception by Aldrich as well.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the cut Yorshka stuff briefly?
Let's actually describe Yorshka,
okay.
because her appearance is actually really important, and what she is very important as
Yeah,
well.
let's talk about textual Yorshka stuff, and then talk about cut Yorshka stuff,
Yeah,
which I don't know very
okay.
much about. So that's going
Right.
to be a learning experience for me.
Yeah. So you drop off and you see this, kind of statuesque woman in white garb who has a furry tail, which is very reminiscent, deliberately so, of Priscilla. Right.
She also has scales on her face in the same way that Priscilla does.
Yes. So there is an immediate connection being brought out here. And, she is the Covenant leader and kind of the sole kind of protector and carrier of the Dark Moon Blade, kind of covenant, kind of with echoes of what's her name from Bloodborne, where you can become her soul knight. You can, yes, much like Annalise, you can become the soul knight to her. But in the process of doing this, and actually by kind of incrementing your rank within this covenant, she starts unspooling more and more information, basically retelling the story of Dark Souls 1, and then finally at the final rank giving you some information about what she believes happened to Gwendolyn, and also dropping this potential kind of link saying, hey, our older brother, and the fact that it's older makes it sound like it is a filial connection and not just like, hey, this is the brother in the church.
Because prior to that, she gives this thing about become a shadow of Father Gwyn and Sister Guinevere, but that's word for word exactly what Gwendolyn says in Dark Souls 1.
Right.
So she's talking about this familial connection to the gods, but it's like, okay, she's literally just repeating something she's heard. She doesn't need to be related to them. But the longer it goes on, it becomes clear that she at least believes that she is a blood relative of Gwendolyn.
Yeah. Well, that kind of her parroting something that she doesn't understand plays into kind of the little bits of characterization we get, which it's kind of rare that we get this kind of characterization in a character in one of these Souls games, but you get the sense of her being incredibly naive and childlike, which comes from when she asks how you get over there.
Yeah.
And she's, did you fly? And you can just say yes or no. And if you say no, she says, I'm ashamed to say I don't know much of anything.
Right.
And if you say yes, she's really kind of like shocked and into it. Like, oh, you're a dragon or a crow, and gets really giddy in a really like a way that's almost infantile.
Yeah. Like I talked about Yorshka with someone else, and she was saying that, I'm probably going to butcher her interpretation, but she was talking about how she saw Yorshka as like the Lady of Shalott, like locked in this tower and distant from the rest of the world, to the point where she's not experiencing anything. She's like she's like this sort of Rapunzel kind of like archetypal princess in a tower.
Yeah. And she's locked away by Sullivan. Like, something happened to bring her here, and she was part of this fixture of this older order. And for some reason, Sullivan didn't see fit to kill her, but actually just to imprison her in this tower.
Do we want to talk about, like, because you talked about when she says, did you fly here? You can say yes or no. And if you say yes, she says, oh, were you a dragon or a crow? Dragons and crows being two very important things from the painted world, specifically in Dark Souls 1. And like she's a lot of her, like, she's positioned physically where the painting would be in Dark Souls 1. And a lot of her, like, frames of reference seem to be the painted world. And like even the Yorshka church itself, it's kind of reminiscent of the churches in the painted world. And you even have like the Velka-ish crow people outside. And you've got this like snowy, like dark stone cathedral with a graveyard outside with these crow people in it. And it's almost like the painted world sort of seeped through slightly. Something like that. Like it inverted. It's not clear.
Yeah. I mean, the energy and the influence spread.
That's a pretty popular theory, is that the painted world has actually kind of burst out of here, and that's why we've got Corvians, and that's why we've got this stuff, which there's a lot of connections. So, and when I say connections, like there are a lot of similarities. There's almost no text, and that ends up becoming mildly not frustrating, but it means I don't 100% kind of buy it. It doesn't feel like
the thing that muddies the waters. The thing that muddies the waters slightly is, like, if you do Dark Anor Londo in Dark Souls 1, you do end up with somewhere kind of like Irithyll. Like, the sun sets, everything's this bluish gray. So it's like, obviously, this Irithyll's in the state it is because it's Anor Londo after Gwendolyn's gone. So, like, maybe if like, hypothetically, you had Dark Anor Londo and you left it for, like, 10 years, would it eventually turn into Irithyll?
With no sun, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean,
like the snow and everything sort of piling up.
Yeah, I mean, like we even see this too. Dark Anor Londo is very sterile. Like Dark Anor Londo is this place that is kind of, held in state, kind of like Lenin or something like that. And the Irithyll and especially the Anor Londo that we end up finding kind of has
it's more like McCartney.
I'm making a point. No, it has this evidence of kind of like corruption. It's messier. Like, you know, it appears to be kind of more lived in, a little bit grosser, you know, obviously because of Aldrich, but also
Aldrich,
just kind of like the, you know, this entropy that is kind of
and
like
bits
leading
and
into
pieces
it.
have obviously been like pilfered and taken to Irithyll, because you can find like it's like the painting of Guinevere, and then there's a couple of silver knights like prior to the pathway to Sullivan.
Yeah,
and Smo's stuff is at the top.
Yeah. And again, it's obvious that that a lot of time has passed, and that, like, you know, a new order and like this new inhabitant kind of came into Irithyll and Orlando kind of like a hermit crab or something like that.
Yeah.
So real quick before we talk about cut content, which I do want to get to, you can drop back down to the through Yorska's church through these rafters and find the Painting Guardian set on your way down.
I love that you find the corpse on a rafter. That is such a fun little joke.
Yeah, he fell. The God help you if you did this before doing the Orlando bonfire, because you cannot climb back up onto the invisible bridge. So if you do this, you have to go all the way back through all that stuff, which pretty frustrating.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can head down there. Let's talk about that deleted stuff, because I don't know about this.
It's been built up slightly too much now. Literally,
no, solve it
cut
for us, Richard.
item that is just Gwendolyn's finger.
Okay.
And you would give Gwendolyn's finger to Yorska, and she would that would be the sign to Yorska that he had actually died. And the finger does, like, it's got that the omniscient objective authorial text saying that this is the finger of the brother of the half dragon girl.
Interesting.
So yeah, just kind of filling in a couple of things.
Yeah, that kind of like muddies things up as well, because, you know, how is that a brother relationship? You know, it kind of implies that I mean, okay, I'm gonna say this, and it's gonna possibly be wrong, that Yorska is actually the daughter of Gwyn and some other dragon or something like that. When everything has led me to believe that Priscilla and everybody else is actually a descendant of the Nameless King.
Like, the weird thing is, like, in order for Dark Souls 3 to have happened, Gwyn has to be dead. We have to have killed Gwyn in Dark Souls 1 and linked the fire, right? Or not linked the fire. So she's probably not Gwyn's kid. But
unless
it's
there's a secret
was
kid
it
from
the mother? Yeah.
Yeah, the
thinking,
timing is tough, but it could be you know, whoever Gwyn's wife, you know.
Yeah, because we never find out who the wife is.
Yeah, so
Gwyn
that could be her kid.
Got 3 kids, but no wife.
Yeah, and he didn't have them like twins. Like they didn't burst out of his finger.
Because it's not clear if, like, the gods reproduce sexually like a normal person, or if they, like, create, like, from their essence or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could also be like a Chinatown situation where, you know, she was born to the son or one of the daughters, and was kind of told or led to believe that you know, her mom was somebody different.
Sure. Like it could be like a secret kid. Cole, did you say that you think the Nameless King is Priscilla's father? What is that from?
You know what? I don't actually have a citation for that.
Well, he allies himself with the dragons. Yeah. So if anyone's going to knock up a dragon, it's him.
And also the idea that this Forsaken son did this profane thing and created a thing that should not be sealed away. Like I don't have like an actual citation for that. That just kind of like adds up in my head canon.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, maybe, but like I was wondered if there was a source that I missed, and it wasn't a headcanon.
Because like previously, the leading like speculation was that Priscilla was the daughter of Seath and Guinevere. Yeah, but now that we know this other son who was allied with dragons, it's a bit okay, maybe.
Yeah. It makes it like more. So I don't know why somebody who is allied with dragons would have a half dragon breed. Yeah, you know, like it's not like you get dragon DNA from being friends with them. Like I'm friends with cats, but if I have a kid, it won't be half cat.
Okay, I get it. It's wrong. No.
I mean, like the idea is he would have to have sex with a dragon, which is like honestly, I was questioning it because it was making me so hot. So,
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying it's wrong. I was just,
Yeah.
again, just curious if I missed
and I feel I feel a little bad
the-
that I can't actually pull up the citation for why I'm led to believe that. Like, it's just an assumption that I came away with.
Well, it's
Also, 'cause
interesting
Dark
because then it makes
Souls
it
3 is-
incestual too, which is
yeah.
like a different. If it was with Guinevere,
Mhm.
which that ends up.
Dark Souls 3 is absolutely like full of people who are hybridizing with dragons, though, like not through sex.
Yep.
Yeah,
with a
Through
Saros
just, like
and also-
experimentation or meditation or whatever, like the stones and everything. So
yeah.
you could have a half dragon kid without necessarily
A parent.
having draconic parentage.
yeah, no.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm saying is I don't I'm not saying that the Nameless King like got dragon DNA and went and boned somebody else and had Priscilla. I think that the Nameless King fucked the dragon, and Priscilla's what came out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. There's nothing to like. That's fine headcanon. I wasn't trying to shit on your headcanon.
Yeah.
I was just, like I said, just worried that I missed something.
Yeah.
Well, I have a terrible Gwendolyn headcanon where he's a test tube baby made by Seath that everyone hates, so I don't talk about it.
That definitely. So the interesting thing, so the idea of that finger, it's so funny the way that cut content comes out in this game, because this is all stuff that I've missed. But I do every once in a while I search. It all just comes from me not being on Reddit, because I like search for cut content every once in a while, and then I don't find very much, and then 1,000 things come out. So I have to read this later, which I'm looking forward to doing.
The cut content also explains why the Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 2 giants look different, which is annoying that they cut that, because everyone was arguing.
Yeah, I would appreciate that to be in the game.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that. But regardless of who Yorshka is, so I mean, I guess we didn't really get to it. Like, we still don't really know who Yorshka is and where she came from.
Right.
Like, she has all of these kind of like just links, you know?
Yeah.
Like, Painted World makes a lot of sense. Could be Painted World. Even then, though, she was definitely interfacing with Gwendolyn. We know that to be the case and not to be false. We have nothing to suggest that Gwendolyn had the ability to go into the Painted World. So did she come out? If so, there's not a lot to show that, other than kind of Corvians being in the world and some kind of geometry or kind of location
and weather. Don't forget
and
weather.
Yeah.
and weather, which I'm with Richard as far as discounting weather as a factor there. Also, like, what it's, why is another area overcast? Like, the weather doesn't have to have a lore significance. But she's interesting at the very least.
Yeah.
Even if I don't totally get her, and she becomes the Covenant leader as well, of the Dark Moon.
Yeah.
Dark Moon Blade. We should mention that you, even to talk to her at all and get this dialogue, you have to have gotten the Dark Moon loyalty gesture from Cirrus. If you don't get that, she will not talk to you.
Oh shit.
Which is very frustrating. When you talk to her, she just says, "What are you doing here?" And your only option is do nothing. So on this kind of quick and dirty playthrough I'm doing just to remind myself of areas, I did not get that dialogue from Cirrus and could not talk to Yorshka, which led to me murdering her for the first time and getting that chime.
Yeah.
So
and pissing off Cirrus later on.
Yeah. Cirrus already hates me. I had to respec because the nerf to the Henri straight sword.
Oh shit, yeah.
So
yeah,
and also that doesn't add up. She says that you're going to be the only one, and Cirrus is very obviously working as a Dark Moon Blade, going and slaying these people. So
yeah,
again, it's a worldy.
The Sunless Lands are another thing I don't really get at all, which is where Cirrus comes from. Is the Sunless Lands Irithyll?
Well, there's no sun, and you find her there.
You find Cirrus in a lot of places, though, and she the implication in her equipment is that, like, she comes from kind of a far off place. When you look at stuff with her and with her grandfather, it feels like a different culture. Like the mound builders and that kind of stuff doesn't fit with how I think of Irithyll and the stuff we know about Irithyll's society.
And it's further confused by the way that, like, geography seems to be kind of collapsing in on itself, with Lothric as this kind of black hole that's drawing everything toward it. Yeah.
So if you don't go across this bridge, we just see the Church of Anor Londo from the top, which was admittedly, even my cold dark heart had a kind of flutter at seeing this.
Yes.
And having that title card pop up, I did get kind of chills from it.
A small beam of light escapes from the bog.
Yes, a tiny individual sapling grows in the middle of the bog, and it's called Anor Londo.
I kind of wish there wasn't a title card here.
Yeah.
Because to my mind, it was way
Yeah.
too late, and I would have much just rather preferred that, okay, this place goes by a new name now.
Yeah, I don't know. I was
Yeah.
okay with it.
Yeah.
I can't necessarily explain it or defend it, but I was okay with it.
Yeah, it must be utterly mystifying because I remember when the game launched, one of the quotes in the launch trailer was like, "If you haven't played the series yet, this is a great place to start." And it's like 90% of this will make even less sense.
I
You
cannot
don't
imagine.
understand what these things are.
People have definitely written in who have just started with Dark Souls 3 and moved backwards.
Mhm.
And we had
Yeah.
Stuart on one of the episodes, and he started with 3
Yeah.
and moved back. He might have
All
started with Bloodborne, but he
Yeah.
hadn't with the actual Dark Souls. He started with 3, and that's
Yeah.
very
It
interesting
reminds
to me.
me of reminds me of the opening of Super Metroid, where you go through the ruins of the previous game's ending.
Mhm.
Mhm.
But it's not necessarily flagged up, so if you don't know what it is, it just looks like a ruined area. But if it's like, oh, I'm in this place again, okay.
Yeah. But like the purpose
Yeah.
that this place serves is entirely just like, okay, it could just be the place where Aldrich is. If you don't have any of that context, this is just another, slightly more rundown cathedral that happens to be the home of this cannibal god. Or this god
absolutely.
cannibal.
Yeah, if you don't know what Anor Londo means, when you get to this title card, you're going to think, why is that area so short? This is going to be like your Valley of the Drakes. Where you're like, or like your Blue Cathedral. Like, why does this get a title card? It's only a boss fight and a couple rooms.
Yeah.
So it's only meaningful to people who had played Dark Souls 1.
Yeah.
And like the dead giant blacksmith corpse.
That makes me so sad because so when
I know.
you run up the staircase and you have these silver knights, there's that abyss touch one, but the only way forward is actually to go through the giant blacksmith place, and he's just kind of like dead, like collapsed behind his anvil, which just implies that he was killed doing his job.
Yeah, he's worked to death.
Yeah,
although technically he can't get out of that room, so
shit, yeah.
That's true.
he doesn't really have a choice.
They built it around him. He starved to death, Cole. It's okay.
Okay, cool.
He died of thirst.
Yeah, that's not any sadder.
Yeah, he's fine. He died of despair, Cole.
Look at him, he's waving. Hey, we'll put some sunglasses on him and nobody will know the difference.
Anytime.
But you can pick up his coal here and take it back to Andre, and he gets wistful. He says, "Oh, it must have been ages ago that he died." And he takes this coal and says, "All right, I'm going to use this to carry his memory forward," because like Andre has a very fond relationship with the giant blacksmith.
Yeah.
Which again, heartbreaking, kind of.
The giant blacksmith, it's kind of funny. Like I get why that's kind of sad and heartbreaking and stuff. It's weird how the giant blacksmith has been built up. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of people, I've like read people accounts where they talked about how they cried at this part. And I think they maybe forgot how little dialogue and how little we knew about this giant blacksmith in Dark Souls 1. Like if you go back to the season I was talking about this guy, we're like, what is this guy's deal? He's just like kind of a giant who works for the gods. Like he has 2 lines of dialogue. He's really, really simple and doesn't have very many connections.
Yeah.
Something about seeing, I think what it actually is, I don't mean to be too critical of it, because what it is, I think, is kind of lore or narrative significance being conflated with mechanical dependency.
Mm-hmm.
Where, like, I think a lot of the goodwill for this guy just came from the fact that he was so empowering play-wise.
Yeah.
Like, he's not a strong character, but finding him is such a big deal in Dark Souls 1 and using him to get your kind of high-end stuff. So people just feel like the sense of security without actually it being tied to a character, really.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of
later when we find the corpse of Ladysmith Gilligan, it's equally heartbreaking.
And don't get me started on when we find Vamos.
Yeah, yeah. Oh man, when Ava invades the it is Vamos so it is. I think that it is just people liking how good it felt to get more powerful.
Yeah.
And that's what they're mourning.
Yeah. And also,
you're not powerful here. You haven't found one fucking Titanite chunk. So like,
and this is one of the first inklings that things are really shitty inside of Anor Londo right now, right? Because everything so far has been like kind of new, but we're actually getting into something that is appreciably the same place. And when we walk in and see, this formerly busy guy collapsed, and we see just like, the rubble of everything around, like going back and seeing a degraded version of a place that used to, used to be the kind of the height of its powers. Like it reminds me, there's a very similar thing. One of the bad endings of Myst 5, the End of Ages, you get trapped on Mist Island, where like the elements have kind of like reclaimed it. And the library has kind of been deactivated, and it just kind of becomes this trap world. But like, okay, you wanted to come back, here you go. Everything is shitty now. And this kind of reminds me of that as well.
The other thing that we find going up through the giant blacksmith's room is we start seeing like Aldrich's kind of like snail trail of goo that he leaves where he moves. And we start seeing this like weird sort of mud on the ground, which we don't quite know what it is. And then once we hit Aldrich, we realize that he's basically a slug and he's left this trail where he's moved.
Yeah, this residue.
I've spent a lot of time trying to figure out why this specific. So what you're talking about, Kole, where we have a direct point of comparison, it does hit really hard, and I was trying to figure out why this hits me in a way that like Farron's Keep didn't. Like realizing that was Darkroot I didn't care that much once I found out.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is that this is too like the way that it happened and the violence that was done to the place is kind of clear.
Yes.
Because we spent all of this time having Aldrich built up, and something I talk about a lot on the show is this idea of like my favorite Dark Souls bosses. You spend the level getting to them, kind of seeing their personality, and then you finally actually meet the man. And it's part of the reason why the end boss of this game doesn't work, but Aldrich works so well for me. It's one of my favorite bosses in this game, is because he's been built up so much.
Yeah.
So seeing this kind of the works of him matter, whereas the degradation that happened to Darkroot are a result of time.
Right.
And it doesn't feel particularly significant. I want more time to pass between my Souls games. Like not enough time passed.
Yeah.
But here it's like, oh, like somebody did this.
Yeah, like this place has been disrespected.
Yeah. Disrespected is a really good word for it. It's been profaned.
The blacksmith is one of the few like through and through good characters in the Souls series. There's not a malevolent bone in him. He just wants to help you.
Yeah.
So seeing him get killed, it's different to seeing like Artorias, who's like this death seeker from the beginning, sort of thing.
Yeah. So who did this? They must die. So you head up the stairs from here. You get into the kind of main chamber here, which is more of this Aldrich slime and stuff. The floor is littered. So once you get down to the floor, somebody repaired that window, which I love soapstone messages about that, like impossible and stuff like that. That was Aldrich's first in his house hunting thing. His buy and flip reality TV show. He built that, but unfortunately he just leaves Aldrich shit everywhere. But there's tons of these little slime things with bones in them that are like Aldrich's remains or something like that.
Yeah, they're called like Aldrich flesh or something. Like that's the official name.
Yeah. It's like parts of them that have sloughed off and kind of become sentient.
Yeah, no, it's like the first boss of Demon Souls, Phalanx, is basically like it's the first boss of the game. Therefore, it's pretty easy. But it's like Miyazaki really likes the concept and keeps kind of recycling bits of it.
I'm down for it. I love the concept.
Like Rom, the vacuous spider, is very much like what if Phalanx was really fast?
Yeah,
and this is like what if Phalanx didn't have a shield?
Yep.
Oh, sure. Yeah. You go back to open up the cathedral, the cutscene, and we get another visit from the Lothric Whatsit, who's here.
It makes far more sense for him to be here, just because of
Well, I mean, the other place he was in the Cathedral of the Deep, which is where Aldrich used to be. So, the Aldrich, I'm happy with the Aldrich Whatsit locations. In the game.
But again, this is kind of the large Bloodborne-y kind of spider kind of guy with the necklace of skulls.
Drops the ruby, the other one drops the sapphire.
And this this one lets you kind of reenact the cannibalism by regaining health on critical hits.
And like both of them have the same description, which is that Aldrich had a desire to share his the delight he got from cannibalism with other people, which makes me wonder if like the spiders are like they're Aldrich followers who ate people as well, and they've become the spider things while Aldrich becomes the slug.
That's how I took it. I thought they were followers.
Because if you look at the texture, it's like it's kind of like the texture Aldrich has, where it's like this massive like bones and like just dead flesh.
We already talked about fighting these things. If you fight them out onto the stair, take them out onto the stairwell, they have some real weird animations that come from being on that stair.
Yeah,
So they're not meant to be on. Yeah. No,
Nope.
not remotely. They do not look good on 45-degree angles. So.
But you want to do that because we fight them inside. You have these deacons who are going to be taking pot shots at you.
Well, deacons, and I killed a couple of them, so I don't have an exact count. But there are north of 12 of these slimes in this room. There are so many of them. So you don't want to do anything in here. Like, this is just like a pain to clear out and a pain to deal with. And luckily, like, you can run past all this stuff to get to the boss door, which is formerly where we fought Ornstein and Smo. You can do if we didn't stab Henri in the face with a sword. This is the good ending for his or her quest.
Right. So you can find a sign that lets you go into their world and help them defeat Aldrich, which is what they've been on this quest to do. Remember, their origin. Both them and Horace were kind of captives of the church and kind of like being groomed to be new meals for Aldrich, but they escaped.
Yes.
And after you've done so, she thanks you, and then she goes hollow.
Right.
So where she goes hollow depends on whether you told her about Horace. But she either goes down to where he's at in the Smoldering Lake and builds a little shrine, which is pretty cute, but then goes crazy. She makes a little shrine to him with a shield and stuff. It's cute. Or she just goes hollow ordinarily, and it becomes Dark Souls 3 mercy killing number 42A. But
yeah, the usual hollowing story. You've fulfilled your purpose. There's nothing more, and then all of a sudden that kind of like lends it. Although that is not as prevalent here as it was in 2. Just the idea again of hollowing being dementia. Yeah, something I really miss is like elaborating on the human experience of that. Yeah, agreed. Like, it's not like Orbeck has that. Like there's so few characters actually have kind of that purpose. Like Grey Rat has a purpose, but it's not like he goes hollow if he can't thief. He just gets bored. So then you go through the boss fog and you actually face the man himself, Aldrich, the Devourer of the Gods. And so this is there's no cutscene really, and you would be forgiven for thinking that this is another Gwendolyn fight because Aldrich is using Gwendolyn's torso as a puppet, and this kind of presents as Aldrich's face, even though the Aldrich proper begins and ends just with the goo that he has become, again as like this covetous demon, gaping dragon kind of consequence of gluttony.
And I love that there's no cutscene. Because it hits you like it's like information overload instantly. You have to really process what you've just seen in like a split second. Whereas if there had been some long introduction of like the Gwendolyn puppet moving and like the sludge everywhere, it would sort of lose its impact. It is just shoved right in your face that like, here it is.
Weirdly, the first thing that struck me upon walking in here was that Ornstein and Smo's room became a shithole.
Possibly literally.
What a bunch of messy boys.
Given Aldrich's eating things, like I'm not trying to be vulgar, but that literally could be Aldrich's like excrement that we're wading around in.
And up until this point, I mentioned in the last episode that once I realized this was Anne Orlando when we found Ornstein and Smo's stuff in the room with the paintings, I was like, oh, we're gonna fight Ornstein and Smo. So maybe I wasn't diligent about reading descriptions. I didn't get to Yorshka before I fought this boss, things like that. So I didn't really realize that Gwendolyn was in play. And so I thought I was going to walk through here and fight I was thinking Artorias versions of Ornstein and Smo. Was my initial thought. And I was really shocked when you talk about the sensory overload. You see Gwendolyn, and then the music comes in, which is quotes the music from the Gwendolyn / Moonlight Butterfly fight from the first one.
Love that so much.
The other
and
great
it's-
thing is that like they just refer to him as Aldrich Saint of the Deep. Up until that point, the first time he shows up, that's when you see on the bar Aldrich Devourer of Gods, and it instantly hits you what's happened.
And how fucking cool is Devourer of Gods, like just as like a trope, or like just as a, you know, like eating a god? I am like way into that. I think that's
he eats people.
Super,
that's badass.
I think that's super cool. Like eating people, not as, you know, cool. That happens. People do that. You know, but like eating a god, like that's like such a, you know, that works as a display of power for me as a thing.
Again, it's a huge disrespect. Like,
yeah. It is even, and so with the puppet thing, like whether it's the corpse being used as a puppet, or what, the way I read it, and just you know, I could be wrong about this, but I just want to make sure it's said in case anybody writes in, is that Aldrich takes on these kind of aspects of things that he eats, or can take on,
like
can kind of summon these aspects. Yeah, exactly. Like I didn't think it was like him literally moving the corpse or controlling the corpse in his mind. I thought this was connected to Aldrich, but he was kind of summoning Gwendolyn.
And it led to people like, oh, if he's got the top of Gwendolyn, then like, is the rest of him Nito? Was like an argument that we had when the game was launched, and it's pretty clear now that it's not. But
I agree that it's not. I think it's a little bit sloppy that he has that Gravelord sword thing. I wish, like, that's chaff information that shouldn't have been there.
I mean, it's fainting toward the idea, if he is the Devourer of Gods, that he has gone around and eaten all the people that you killed in the first game, when the only text is, you know, that he has just gotten Gwendolyn as like
and
the
also
last
like
remnant.
this game can't happen unless we've already killed Nito, but Gwendolyn's always optional.
Right.
Yeah.
There's actually the other piece of evidence for him having eaten Nito is, I saw in the Dave Klein video of the same thing, is that the soundtrack does sound like a remix between Nito's theme, and it really does. Like Nito's theme is in there.
Well. Yeah.
So it is frustrating. I mean, I agree that it is probably not Nito. That is probably the truth of the matter. It is frustrating that From put these little feints in there for no.
I'm also just thinking, like, how would you eat Nito? Because he's just a pile of skeletons.
Well, you boil it, you make soup. Like, you just make stock, Nito stock.
Nito soup. Yeah.
We have Estes soup. We can make Nito soup.
That's true.
Solaire soup. Yeah. The So
you could scoop them up with. You could scoop Nito up with Fritos.
Yeah, Nito Fritos. Make some Nito pie down south. So he is this kind of large slub. Like, the other thing, the reason why he's Nito is because he has all these bones in there. But like everything has bones attached to him in this game. The Lothric Whatsit has bones.
Most
so
people
like
have bones.
The sandworm too has like a bony texture on it.
Yeah, all kinds of things are covered in bones. So that doesn't mean much. But I definitely bought into the Nito thing at first because of the Gravelord sword, and that made sense to me.
I was like expecting bits of other god to like pop out throughout the fight.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm really glad he didn't have different. Like he switched to different god phases.
Yeah.
I would have loved that. I feel like he's wasted potential, because you could have done so much with like the ability that he has to mimic people.
Mm-hmm.
You could have him like mimic NPCs and stuff, and like he's like killing people and filing, and you don't know who it is.
But that happens at the end. Oh wait, no, the fight mimic. You actually mean like literally make him a thing.
I mean like he like have him like take over Andre or something and eat him, and then you
giving him the voices to play with your head would have been incredible. Like if you get there and as he like kills you, he goes like, "Don't you be going hollow," or something like that. Oh shit! So he's kind of this big blob. He's got Gwendolyn's head. He kind of looks like a snake, like a naga, essentially.
Yeah.
With a gigantic scythe there, the Gravelord scythe. And the mechanically, like, I actually really like this fight. I know a lot of people are not super into it. And he's not very tanky. Like, you can kind of chunk him down, but his entire moveset is about keeping you away from him.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Because that is where he is worst.
Yeah.
So similar to Gwendolyn, right? Like Gwendolyn, that was a different expression of that idea. Like Gwendolyn wanted to keep you away from him.
Yeah.
So does Aldrich. And the way he does this, he kind of constantly fills the air with these little sprites, these little magic missiles. Mm-hmm. He has a couple of big soul beams, and then his most infamous attack is this Dark Moon bow kind of attack.
Yeah,
where he will rain arrows down.
Just like even worse than the version Gwendolyn had.
Yeah. It is truly devastating. But like the best way to kind of avoid it is to run toward him. Like and that puts you in position, at least for the first part.
The first half. Yeah. Initially, it lasts too long. How cool looking is it?
It's so
these
cool
little
looking.
and when you die to it, and then you're just a pincushion of like 1,000 little energy arrows. Like it's such a cool looking death.
Yeah.
It's a bummer you can't get hit by it. Like, and I don't really like one hit death things in Dark Souls. And this is kind of one of those.
Yeah.
But it's also, he telegraphs it so clearly that the message, the way you avoid it is not actually hard. You just have to be really cautious.
Right.
Like it lasts longer than you think it does.
Yeah.
So
and that's
so
like baiting you as well, because Aldrich is he's such like a weak, squishy thing that you're always tempted to run in and get a couple more hits.
Yeah. Like you don't, and I think maybe part of the reason why I like this boss fight so much is that it just happens to play into how I play.
Yeah.
Like I play the game, I play Souls games very conservatively and cautiously, and to have that rewarded is really great.
Yeah.
So
the reason that I like this fight so much is because it is possibly the best expression of like fighting a really, really like competent, one would even say godlike caster that I've seen.
Yes.
You know, like this, you know, you are going up against somebody who has, you know, just complete mastery of the elements, you know, on their own terms, in, you know, good footing. You know, even footing rather.
It's a really good caster fight.
Yeah.
Like for sure. I think I kind of like Dark Lurker more as a fight, but this is a very good caster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the thing that sours Dark Lurker for me is the duplicate thing. Like like that, it's that even footing, the even footing idea that makes me lean toward this more.
I actually love that the duplicate thing with that, but we went into that.
Yeah,
we're not even going to go into it. We have done it. You can go back to that, but this is really
particularly
really
a relief after Crystal Sage.
Yeah,
who was just like duplicate, and say, oh come on.
And so this guy does the same thing Crystal Sage does, where he kind of ducks underground and comes back up with a little area effect thing. But he does it with like frequency that really does like, you know, get away from me, you know? I really like how that kind of characterizes him, because he is very strong. Like he was made a Lord of Cinder because of his might, but he also, it's almost like he's like mindlessly focused on this. Like he wants to get away from you to get back to his kind of all-consuming kind of task, which is consuming all, you know.
Also, it's kind of like not clear, because you see Aldrich pre-eating Gwendolyn in the beginning, and he's just like, he's basically a liquid.
Yeah
So it's not really clear how much of like quote unquote Aldrich is left, he's just there, like he's just like, he's kind of, it makes me think of like the end of Akira when Tetsuo just turns this massive amoeba. Like that, like can he even control himself anymore, or is he just eating everything?
All he is the desire to devour, and we even see that like in some of the flavor text, you know, very, very flavorful text, that you know, says like, oh, he eventually just started eating because he was bored.
Like the person I was talking to about Aldrich said that like she saw him as like Sullivan's WMD. That like Sullivan like kept this like thing that would just eat and destroy anything in its path, like almost as like a weapon, rather than them being on an equal. Even though Aldrich is the one who has all the followers in the cathedral and these deacons and these archbishops, he's basically just like an animal at this point.
Yeah, like Aldrich is the engine and the figurehead, but Sullivan is the one who's actually directing it.
Charge. Which is, and it's odd then that like Sullivan is halfway through the game and then you kill him.
Well, exactly. Like there's so much of this game
some other guy
that feels like this is the point of the game, is fighting this God Eater. You know, it's like it's almost like this is the ending of a game that I maybe would have liked a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean it's a climax
I kept
for sure.
expecting him to come back throughout the game. I'm like, he's gonna pop up and he's gonna be part Gwyn now or something. Like that for sure. Like anything would have been the thing, because I think that the reason why I like Aldrich so much, other than the fact that I like the fight a lot, is that like I think this is maybe in the series, and far be it from me to like, you know, see something in Dark Souls 3 does it the best in the series, but like the best build up to a boss we've had, because you just spend so much time reading these really, really fascinating, evocative nuggets about this guy, and then you go through, you know, what he's destroyed Anor Londo. That was my Anor Londo. You know, like I have a sense of ownership over that. It's actually like the reverse of what they normally do, because normally there's a boss. You have no context or understanding of what this thing is. You kill it, and then in the aftermath of that, you get the things like the souls and the lore and everything that are putting together what just happened, like Quelaag.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like, you show up, you have no idea who Quelaag is, you have no idea what she's doing, she's just a spider demon. You kill her, then after she's dead, it turns out, oh, she's gathering humanity for her sister, she's one of the witches of Izalith's kids, she's merged with the demon because the fire, blah, 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 but that's like, you find this out all posthumously, as far as she's concerned.
Right.
Aldrich is the opposite, he's built up throughout it.
Yeah.
And like the comparable thing, I guess, would be Aldia, because Aldia is built up.
Yeah.
Would be Aldir or even Gwyn.
Yeah,
right?
Gwyn is what I'm going to say, because, like, you know,
Yeah.
just like Gwyn, Aldrich has kind of shaped the entire world that we've gone through. You know,
Yeah.
right now.
And that's so cool. Like that's such a thing I play these games for, is this like that feels right to me in a way that like it's, so when people like have like been like, you know, why are you down on this game? It's because I get that very rarely from this. Like I don't feel that way about like the Abyss Watchers. Like I like that fight, but I don't have that sense of like, you know, majesty and build up and coolness that really feels climactic. Like it does feel like, it feels like the end of the game to me, which and it's in no way, it's like halfway through, or a little bit more than halfway through, but roughly halfway through.
Yeah. And you know, this, we can do this in a way that, you know, puts this right before the final push on Lothric. In a lot of ways, that feels like the order that was intended.
Yeah, that's the order I got.
As you know, as well. But still, like, you know, from Lothric onward, that is a tremendous amount of kind of like post-amble or denouement that doesn't feel like it kind of like has as much drive as, you know, what we spent the first 2/3 of this game doing.
Yeah, and even liking that stuff. Like I really dig that stuff with the angels. I love the princes. I love that boss fight stuff. But if I were like editing this purely for like sense of impact, that would have come before this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
To me, it feels like Lothric is one story that halfway through you stop and do a story about Aldrich and then pick up again. Yeah.
Exactly. 100%. Like those are exactly that's exactly how I feel about it. And it's a story I really like. So it ends up meaning that I have tons of goodwill for this stuff. I really dig it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
and they're two stories told in very different ways.
Yeah.
Like Aldrich is very straightforward. This is what happened. Whereas Lothric is very Bloodborne-esque of like this sort of cosmic unknowable element to it that is hinted at but never really seen, and all the stuff about like religion and these schisms within Lothric's power structure.
And also, it doesn't help that we are yanked from this story and dropped bodily back into this thing that we could have forgotten.
Yeah. How sloppy
it's
is
like,
that?
oh, by the way.
Oh man, is that a seam? Yeah. So the but while we're here, without saying how it impacts the entire game, like I am 100% on board. I love this fight. I like helping people with it as well. Because it is, if you play any kind of caster or distance fighter, you can really wreck shop with this while people kind of distract Aldrich. Aldrich has a second phase as well where it gains kind of fire powers.
Well, all
flame
the
trails
do that.
And it will deploy Life Hunt Scythe on you as well.
Yes. Which is a miracle that Aldrich dreamed up. Like dreamed of a being that was either Yorshka or Priscilla. A pale young girl that was in like kind of kept away in a prison. And kind of that.
It specifies like explicitly that miracles are like it's a story. So Aldrich has dreamed up, or like dreamed, but he's seen as he devoured Gwyndolin the story of the Painted World.
Yeah,
because
presumably also what the Corvian storytellers are doing.
Right.
Because I don't know if we've run into this lore bit yet, but he devoured Gwyndolin gradually.
Yep.
Yeah, they really put emphasis on it to the point where it sounds like a Vor fanfic. Like just going on and on about how slow it was.
I mean, just like the sense that you get is he used him as a human larder, almost. Like, just took bits
and
and
it makes
pieces.
you wonder like how that, because Aldrich doesn't have a mouth, so it makes you think that like Gwyndolin is just like suffocated by this blob that's like slowly dissolving him.
Cool.
Yeah.
Do you think that's the, like, how many times has the idea of a human larder come up on the network? First part of the question. Second part of the question. How likely do you think that the entire body of our podcast work will be like Exhibit C in some kind of cannibalism trial at some point, based on how often we bring up human larders.
Yeah, so the thing is, eventually we have to look at the common denominator, which is us. So
Yeah, exactly.
maybe we're just bringing this to it.
If someone's putting together the lore, Cole and I definitely have a closet full of frozen bodies. Like, all lore points to that.
Yeah.
So, God, Aldrich's good. Then you find the little, like, the his and her elevators.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That head on to the top. And I was also really surprised. Like, when we say getting yanked bodily, like, I also thought this would continue past here in some way.
Yeah.
But when you get here, you just get the Sun Princess ring.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah.
Here, which tells us about Guinevere. It feels warm like the sun, and Guinevere left to a foreign land and became the wife and mother and raised a family.
Yeah. So she got a good ending.
Well, yeah, which is, I mean, kind of.
But we,
yeah.
I mean, okay,
she
so
probably didn't.
Yeah.
Just the possibility of a good ending.
Yes, the possibility, but she got away from this. I kind of refuse to believe that it's impossible, or that a good ending is impossible, just because she may have died at some point.
Well, she's likely, like, I'm on board the Guinevere is the Lothric queen train.
Well, isn't it like basically just said outright on the Hidden Blessing?
Is it like, I'd have to look at the description again. I remember it being somewhat open to interpretation, but it's very likely.
It's literally just the divine blessing from Dark Souls 1 with Queen of Lothric subbed in for Guinevere.
Yeah.
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 So
I didn't make that connection.
And she's the mama.
Yeah. It's one of those things that, like, because you can choose the hidden blessing as a starting gift.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, you can know right from the beginning that it's Guinevere, or you can find out here, depending on what you pick.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Huh.
So, yeah, that's her, and that's Aldrich.
Yep.
And that's the room above. We'll be going back to this room sometime relatively soon. I guess we didn't plan for it now, but we have to do Longfinger, or do Kirk's, or God, not Kirk.
Leonard.
Yeah, exactly. Leonard. Thank you. We have to do Ringfinger Leonard's quest at some point, which actually will take us back here, which kind of has some suggestions about Rosaria.
Yep.
Being related as well. Yeah. But I don't know that I think Rosaria is Guinevere / the Queen of Lothric.
I don't think that at all.
Yeah. Some people do.
Yeah.
It is a theory that's out there. So
Vati, I think Vati said she's Gertrude, I think.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Which is, I mean,
that feels a little bit better
again,
to me.
it feels a little bit better, but
it's a little better, but then, like, there's literally a corpse with Gertrude's stuff on it.
I think that's so obviously Gertrude.
That's probably Gertrude. Yeah.
The idea that's even up for discussion is really confusing to me, because everyone's just like, oh, that can't be Gertrude. It's like, well, that is historically how the game has communicated to us
that it is a person. Yeah.
Yeah. That
and plus,
find their corpse and their
she's
stuff.
surrounded by, like, these feathers, and that's what Gertrude had this miracle from the angels. And
yeah. Yeah, so I mean, we'll definitely get into that as well, but we'll get into this last little bit probably next episode. Yeah, but yeah, for now, I think that we probably said. Do we have any wrap up thoughts on kind of this area? Anything we didn't go into?
I'm just going through my notes. I don't think so.
Yeah. I'll throw in, just because I've got it here. You know, our dislike of the callbacks has been a prominent theme throughout all of this, and I'll just repeat what I said at the beginning. This feels different, and this feels actually very cool because of the density and the consequence.
Also, because this feels like it is a sequel to what happened. It's building on prior events rather than just referencing them. Yeah,
and again, the fate of Anor Londo evokes kind of, you know, the something that Miyazaki stated as the purpose of the first game, which is, you know, this kind of rundown dignity. And,
like a grandeur in decline, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and we've got to see it. Like, we got to see the grandeur. Mm-hmm. We've got to see the decline with Dark Anor Londo, and then we got to see even further.
Yeah.
You know, with this, and it's different. Like, I'm anticipating the feedback that's like, oh, you guys hate, you know, because for some reason on the internet, any kind of nuanced opinion is automatically seen as hypocrisy, and therefore, that person needs to be thrown out because they're
not pure.
Yeah, exactly. They like one thing and dislike something else for the similar reasons. But I'll echo what Cole said, is that this is so different. Like this is recontextualizing and bringing up something that we've seen before and continuing the story and doing something with it. Like Gwendolyn is here for a reason.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is not just here's Gwendolyn. It is, like this is somebody who we know and this is the rest of their story. It's not even like they're back. It feels like a continuation.
Yeah, continuity is the word I would use for this.
Yeah.
Like, it is not a restart, and it is not just kind of like a very half-pulled punch of an homage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is, what things like Irithyll feels like.
Yeah.
Like where it's just like a little bit like, oh, this is a thing that I know about, but like, okay. It doesn't like it I think because, and part of the reason why is because of that narrative weight we talked about with the game being about Aldrich for so long.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is, in order to do the kind of callbacks that Dark Souls wants to do constantly, you need to treat the things you're calling back with this much respect.
Yeah.
And not the amount of respect that you gave any number of the other callbacks. Like this much time and weight needs to be paid to the things. And this is one of the very few examples of times they actually treat it with the kind of the reverence that I think it requires for it to work for me. Like your mileage may vary. If you're listening to this, your mileage does vary. I know. But this is this is what it takes. I need this much care and thought put into a callback for it to feel good.
Yeah.
So Richard, thank you very much for joining us, man.
Thank you for inviting me back on.
Yeah. It was great. I know you stayed up really late to do this, which I appreciate as well.
It's just on 6:30 a.m.
That's so sweet of you. I think I really appreciate it.
It's fine.
Where can people find you online?
If you just, I've given up trying to spell my channel name. If you just type Bloodborne up close into YouTube, you will eventually find me. I'll probably be the top one.
Yeah, I should hope so. And I really eagerly await some Dark Souls 3 stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you. I have something coming.
Excellent. Yeah. And those videos have the highest recommendation. I really like those up close videos.
Thank you very much.
So
thank you.
They're very good. Say thank you to Richard for hanging out with us. We let him go as per usual.
Yeah.
But he is a guy who really knows his stuff.
Yeah.
And it's awesome to talk to somebody who is as knowledgeable and as good at close reading.
Yeah.
As he is.
For sure. Yep. So next time we're actually going to go from one callback to another, and we're going to backtrack a little bit. Good.
What an amazing contrast this will be. To talk about the universally reviled area. Nearly universally reviled.
Yeah.
Of Smoldering Lake and the Demon Ruins. What?
Huh?
How many chances do you need from? So Demon Ruins are back, baby, and we're going to talk about
chalice form.
They're back in chalice form. And we're going to be joined by Sean Wagner, aka the lore hunter.
Yeah,
I was called the lore lawyer.
I thought you were about to say the lawyer hunter. Habeas corpse. Bam.
It's time for Johansson, Murray, Kristoff, and dead. Yours was better. So yeah, we're gonna be joined by Sean to talk about this area that not very many people like, myself included.
Yeah.
If you have anything to say about that, if you like it or dislike it, hit us up at Duckfeed.tv/contact.
Yeah. And we take responses about kind of all of the areas. If you are going to write in just like, hey, I've got thoughts about Irithyll Dungeon and the Profane Capital, please try and keep those responses kind of focused to one particular area, especially as we get to this last stretch where the order gets a little bit ordery-wardery.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're gonna say write in about Lothric, try and keep it within the bounds of Lothric itself. That is purely a selfish thing. I'm being very lazy. I just want to, the way that I file your responses is by area, and I don't kind of go in and copy stuff out into documents and stuff.
Yeah. It just makes things a little bit easier for us because we get a lot of responses.
Yeah.
As per usual, brevity is good and single subject kind of thing is good. So confining it to the area, that doesn't mean you can't say something general about Dark Souls 3, but making a point about a thing rather than an all-encompassing review is kind of what we want.
Yes.
for this. If you want to support the show, the best way to do so is to go to patreon.com/DuckFeed.tv. We have new shows coming that we're getting closer and closer to being able to put out.
Yeah.
And even without growing that number, even just having that number and maintaining it is what helps us keep the lights on.
Yeah.
And buy equipment, do live shows, things like that.
Yeah. And even dedicate more and more of our time to making more and more of this content.
Yes. Absolutely. So that is the number one thing you can do. What else can they do, Cole?
We have a Facebook page. It is facebook.com/bonfiresidechat. You can go there and like it and share our posts and things like that. That helps us grow, and that kind of feeds into a broader thing where like talking about us on social media is like the only real way that we grow. So you kind of taking the opportunity to spread the word is greatly appreciated.
Yeah. We don't pay for advertising, so this is it's all word of mouth. As a general rule, we've done a couple of minor marketing things, but for the most part, it's just through word of mouth.
Yeah.
And they're your mouths, your words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, huge thanks to people that came out to meet us in Austin. This is the first kind of new episode we've recorded after that live show for Watch Out for Fireballs. Met a lot of Bonfireside Chat fans while we were out there, and that was a tremendous experience. So thank you for both to our donors for helping make that possible, and also to the people who took the opportunity to come say hi.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was so fun, and we love to meet people. We have another live appearance with our other show with Watch Out for Fireballs coming up at the Portland Retro Gaming Expo, Retro Game Expo in October. Yep. Second weekend in October.
It's October 21st through 23rd.
Third weekend, thank you, of October. Please come out and say hi. Even though we're not there to support Dark Souls, we'd love to meet you.
Yeah.
So come on out, and we'll have information on our website and everything about meetups and the like as it approaches.
Yeah.
And then ratings, reviews, things like that are also all useful, as you know.
Yeah.
So that's probably good. Cole, what should they do until next time?
Let me just remember, the all-powerful fire deserveth a new air.
I agree. You got my vote.
And we all pray that we will have far more soon